Chapter 790. Like a meteor falling to the ground, Zhu Yi's vast Yang avatar hurriedly threw himself at Jingfeng Wang's stone forest. With a palm strike, a buzzing sound came from the belly of the mountain. The entire space was blown apart by this palm strike. Shilin was a bit surprised. Astro King's martial arts, heavenly city boundary, godly palm. Second level of primordial spirit returning to emptiness stage, appearing in Ing Si. You are Hao Yang Tao Master Wang Hao. You're not dead. But soon he saw the face of the newcomer clearly, and it was 80% similar to Zhu Yi. You made Hao Yang Tao Master's body into your doppelganger? Although Shilin knew that Zhu Yi's divine soul power and supernatural power couldn't be measured by the standard of the ordinary Yuanying late-stage cultivators, he was still shocked when he saw that Zhu Yi could make a doppelganger with the cultivation of the second level of primordial spirit realm before he reached the primordial spirit realm. Although it seemed that he could only use the Astro King's martial arts of Hao Yang Tao Master, his cultivation power was almost equal to that of Hao Yang Tao Master, and he was not inferior to Monk De Kong in his peak state. Shilin's void-returning Dharma body chanted a spell, and layers of black water turned into a black dragon in front of him, which rushed towards Zhu Yi's Hao Yang doppelganger. However, its head was smashed by Hao Yang's doppelganger with one palm. Then the doppelganger's hands turned into claws and grabbed the dragon's body, tearing it into several pieces. On the other side, Zhu Yi Tao Master used the four symbols of Great Circle Formation, and a circle immediately wrapped around the white jade pillar, firmly blocking the black water that almost covered the entire white jade pillar and stopped it from spreading upward. At this moment, the black water was only a millimeter away from the top of the white jade pillar. But this millimeter was so close that it couldn't be crossed. Shilin wanted to take on the attacks of Hao Yang's doppelganger and refine the white jade pillar first. At that time, even if Zhu Yi and Hao Yang's doppelganger attacked him together, he would not be afraid. However, he did not expect that Hao Yang's doppelganger was too fierce. If he dared to divert his attention to the white jade pillar, Hao Yang's doppelganger would quickly close in on him. Once Hao Yang's doppelganger got close to him, Shilin would truly be in danger. This was an opponent that he might not be able to defeat even if he gave it his all. With a thought, Shilin hurriedly summoned the Black River Swordback. However, he suddenly realized that there was no response from the Black River Sword. Other than a faint telepathic connection, there was no other response. Looking over, he saw that the Black River Sword was currently sealed in the great barrier of light and darkness formed by the eternal night devil steel and the infinite light Bodhi heart lamp. It was unable to move. Originally, the eternal night devil steel and the infinite light Bodhi heart lamp had teamed up to fight against the Black River Sword. Even though it was 2 against 1, they were still in a difficult situation. They could only barely suppress the Black River Sword and buy some time. But now, the Black River Sword was completely suppressed by these 2 treasures. It had completely lost its previous monstrous aura. King Jingfeng, although I have yet to form a primordial soul, this Hao Yang clone is a true primordial soul returning to Void Realm Cultivator. Zhu Yi smiled. Junior's Hao Yang clone can use the eternal night devil steel and the infinite light Bodhi heart lamp to unleash their full power. Either one of them is not inferior to your Black River Sword. Shilin's heart instantly sank. He understood that after Zhu Yi cultivated Hao Yang's clone, not only did he have a clone at the second tier of the primordial soul realm, but even his powerful Dharma treasures could be put to good use. The increase in his overall strength was unimaginable. When he thought of this, Shilin immediately calmed down and focused all his attention on fighting Hao Yang's clone. He didn't dare to be distracted anymore. After Zhu Yi used Hao Yang's clone to suppress Shilin, his main body began to refine the white jade pillar. The tables had turned. Previously, Shilin's black mystic water had wiped out Zhu Yi's light and darkness characters. Now it was Zhu Yi's turn to clean up his black mystic water. However, Shilin's black mystic water was truly strange and profound. The black water shimmered with light, and wherever the light shone, the black water would not budge. Even Zhu Yi found it difficult to deal with. Have you refined the eternal light's concept into your black mystic water-dermic powers? He shook his head and waved his hand to scatter a sand-like light spot. It was the divine instant sand. He used the instant true intent to melt away Lin's eternal light. Upon seeing the divine instant sand, Lin sighed. The last hope in his heart had been severed. He was an immortal dragon city. The immortal dragon city wouldn't be restrained by the divine instant sand, but the eternal light he comprehended from immortal dragon city would be melted away by the divine instant sand. The black mystic water on the white jade pillar kept receding as the light and darkness characters quickly covered the white jade pillar. When the light and darkness characters covered the white jade pillar, be it Zhu, Yi, or Lin, they could sense that the entire immortal abode continent, or even the entire world, was quaking. Zhu vaguely sensed that his thoughts and consciousness seemed to fuse with the creation universe. It was extremely grand and vast. However, the powerful energy fluctuation had completely broken through the barrier of the immortal abode continent and exposed itself to the world. Lin Feng's clone of the divine god of battle had already landed on the immortal abode continent. He was about to refine the immortal mountain when he suddenly sensed the magnificent aura and the complete creation intent contained within it. He immediately came to a realization. The embryo of a creation artifact, the immortal abode continent. No, it's the embryo of a creation artifact that was nurtured by the immortal abode continent. As a master, Lin Feng is naturally the person who is most familiar with his disciple. At the first moment, he was already able to distinguish through the consciousness aura on the magic treasure embryo that it was Zhu Yi's initial refinement of this treasure that caused such a large commotion. Zhu Yi knew what he was doing. His clone of Hao Yang was used to suppress Lin. After all, his main body had yet to achieve the nascent soul realm. Therefore, he did not blindly refine the embryo, as he was afraid that it would be ruined. He only had a basic control over it, but that alone was enough for him to activate the white jade pillar and clear the immortal mountain. Be it Lin, Monk De Kong, Sword Venerable Tide Hark, or Dao Venerable Chong Lu, none of them could stop it. Liang Pan and Yu also sensed the changes in the immortal mountain at the same time. They were also shocked. It's actually the embryo of a creation artifact. Could it be that the strange balance formed by the nameless ancient formation and the immortal abode continent triggered the power of the immortal abode continent to nurture such a rare treasure? Yu's face was blocked by the curtain of beads hanging from the crown. For a moment, it was a little dark and unclear. The immortal dragon city turned into a seemingly endless light dragon that swam in the void. Giving up the immortal abode continent in exchange for Lin Feng to suppress the great Zhou Empire and obtain the vast territory and resources in the east of the great Zhou Empire was Yu's plan. At the same time, it was also his bottom line. However, with the sudden appearance of a creation artifact embryo, Yu had to adapt and change his plan. It was not that greed had blinded his rationality, but the weights on both sides of the scale had changed from balance to unbalance, far exceeding his expectations. Emperor Liang Pan's expression was calm, as usual, as if he was not worried at all about the sudden invasion of the great Qin Empire on the divine land outside the immortal abode continent. Yu, there is actually no contradiction between being aggressive and scheming, Liang Pan said confidently. Liang Pan was as steady as Mount Tai. He said confidently, the key is strength. With sufficient strength, one can deal with all sorts of changes. Yu's expression did not change. He used a secret treasure to contact the Great Qin Empire's experts outside the immortal abode continent. On the divine land, at the eastern border of the Great Qin Empire, which was also the western border of the Great Zhou Empire, a five-colored golden dragon circled in the sky. In the end, it turned into an old man in an official robe. He looked at the layers of clouds in the sky of the Great Zhou Empire with a gloomy expression. The clouds in the sky changed shape and gradually revealed the facial features of a woman. She looked like an adult woman, but also like a little girl who had not grown up yet. The face formed by the clouds occupied half of the sky in the east. It looked at the old man in the official robe and said with a smile, "King Gunyong, please return." The old man in the official robe was silent. At this moment, Shiryu's message came again. The old man in the official robe said simply, "Yin Yuanjin has come." After that, the old man in the official robe did not say anything else. Shiryu did not continue asking, but they both knew that the original plan was no longer feasible. Stonefeather looked towards the Grand Imperial Palace in Liangpan. Even though Yin Yuanjin is Yin Mingyue's master, in this kind of matter, Yin Yuanjin definitely has his own judgment. "What kind of deal did you make with the Void Temple?" Liang Pan replied calmly, "No deal. Half of it is a favor from Fairy Yin, and the other half is, as you said, Yin Yuanjin's own decision." Shiryu nodded. "Taishu Temple wants to keep the Great Zhou dynasty. It doesn't want you to be weakened too much. If you hadn't lost Fangzhong Immortal Mountain, Yin Yuanjin might not have made a move." After the Battle of West Hill City, the order in the cultivation world that Taishu Temple had originally led was broken by Lin Feng and the others. Xianmin Tianzong, the Great Qin Dynasty, the Great Zhou Dynasty, the Purple Sky Path, the Northern Militant Royal Court, and other factions joined forces to oppose Taishu Temple. However, this faction was naturally not completely united. There were many conflicts between the Great Qin and the Great Zhou, and the relationship between Xianmin Tianzong and the Great Zhou was worsening. Taishu Temple wanted to set things right and return everything to the situation before the Battle of West Hill City, so they naturally had many arrangements. This time, due to other reasons, Taishu Temple did not participate in the fight for the appearance of the three mountains of Yinghai, but they were always paying attention. As long as the three mountains did not fall into the hands of the demon race, Taishu Temple would not mind too much. However, when necessary, they would help the Great Zhou dynasty, which was increasingly at odds with the Great Qin dynasty and Xianmin Tianzong, so as to maintain the conflict between the opposing factions. This was naturally a matter of course. If the Great Zhou dynasty gained a lot from the three mountains of Yinghai and earned a lot, then Taishu Temple would definitely help the Great Qin dynasty according to the specific situation, or even Xianmin Tianzong who had led the fight against them. The purpose was set and the methods could be changed according to the situation. Whether they were friend or foe depended on the specific situation. It was precisely because Taishu Temple had this plan that Yin Yuanjin accepted Yin Mingyue's invitation to make a move. He had a good reason to do so, and the other big shots of Taishu Temple also tacitly agreed. However, helping the Great Zhou dynasty solve the crisis of the Divine Land was also the limit. The rest would depend on the Great Zhou dynasty's own ability. Lin Feng stood at the peak of Jade Capital Mountain, but he still looked calm. He seemed to turn a blind eye to the abnormal movements of Stone Feather and the Immortal Dragon City. He smiled slightly. "Fellow Sure, back then in West Hill City, I helped you refine the Immortal Dragon City with the heaven-punishing sword, and you also gave me the eternal glory. You and I sat down and discussed Tao, and we both benefited greatly. Since we have some free time today, why don't you exchange Tao with me again?" As he spoke, Lin Feng stretched out his left hand, and a spot of light flickered on the tip of his index finger. It was fleeting, and it lit up in the blink of an eye, constantly appearing and disappearing, showing the mysterious concept of time changing in an instant. Chapter 791. Light flickered on Lin Feng's fingertips as he said calmly with a smile, "The Celerita is Sword Sect's instantaneous flowing light. Sword Tao has a deep understanding of the true meaning of the instantaneous change of time. However, there are still some shortcomings. I've studied the instantaneous divine, sand, and verified it with the eternal radiance, and I've gained some insights. Are you interested in sharing with me, fellow Sure?" Previously, the Great Qin dynasty was prepared to join forces with Xianmin Tianzong to fight for Yingzhou Mountain. However, because there was only one mountain, it was difficult to distribute the benefits. Moreover, Lin Feng had a better idea, so they did not reach an agreement in the end. However, now that they had a creation treasure embryo, the situation was completely different. The great Qin dynasty no longer had a chance at the Divine Land. Even if Stonefeather immediately drove the immortal Dragon City back to reinforce them, it would be useless. Taishu Temple did not only have Yin Yuanjin. Yin Mingwei and Yin Yuanjin's actions this time were in line with the overall thinking of the conservative faction of Taishu Temple. Therefore, if there was a need, they could borrow more power. However, because of their own reasons, Taishu Temple would not take the initiative to attack. Under such circumstances, the Great Qin dynasty's target would definitely return to Yingzhou. Lin Feng had sufficient reason to believe that the Great Qin dynasty's King Ruoyong, Shi Zhongmao, and the others, who were originally attacking the Great Zhou, were most likely rushing over to Yingzhou. Given that Stonefeather had always been steady, the Great Qin dynasty's other Dao integration realm expert, Nanming monarch Shi Zongtong, would most likely remain in West Hill City. However, it was hard to say. For the Great Qin dynasty, the most ideal outcome would be to join forces with Xianmin Tianzong to chase the Great Zhou dynasty away. Yingzhou Mountain and the White Jade Pillar would each be won. It would be even better if they could heavily injure the Great Zhou dynasty. But for Lin Feng, he was determined to obtain both the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain and the White Jade Pillar this time. However, this kind of behavior of monopolizing everything and taking all the benefits by himself was naturally a very taboo thing. Making enemies with the entire world and challenging the entire world with the strength of one family was indeed very satisfying and domineering. However, putting aside the question of whether he had the ability to do so, even if he had the ability, if it wasn't really necessary, Lin Feng didn't intend to do so at all because it was too tiring. He could obviously achieve his goal more easily, but he had to increase the difficulty. Perhaps some people would be happy to do such a thing, but Lin Feng wasn't interested. He preferred to constantly reduce the difficulty of doing things. Under the situation where there were no conflicts of principle, he would unite the majority. He would have more friends and fewer enemies, and everything would naturally fall into place. This time, he planned to devour the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain and the Creation Dharma Treasure Embryo, so he naturally had to pay a price. Lin Feng's newly forged Instance Radiance was the price he offered. In reality, 3 years ago in the Great Thousand World, after the Immortal Dragon City had been completely refined, the Qin Emperor Stonefeather had already realized the importance of the Instance Radiance. The rules set by the Taishu Temple no longer existed. If it wasn't for the changes in Tianhuang vast land which brought pressure to the human race experts, there would have been some big fish eating small fish and small fish eating shrimps in the Divine Land. For example, the Great Qin dynasty had their eyes on the Celeritas' sword sect Sword Dao. However, after the Battle of West Hill City, the Celeritas' sword sect was already very close to Xianmin Tianzong. There was pressure from the demon race on the outside and Xianmin Tianzong's protection on the inside, so it wasn't convenient for the Great Qin dynasty to take it by force. Moreover, as Lin Feng had said, the Celeritas' sword sect's instant flowing light Sword Dao was still a little lacking from the Great Qin dynasty's needs. Therefore, the Great Qin dynasty's thoughts had gradually faded. Not long ago, Lin Feng had combined the power of Yujing Mountain and figured out the Celeritas' sword sect's instant divine sand, and finally refined the Instance Radiance that was opposite to the Eternal Radiance. Although it was still in its embryonic form, and was still immature compared to the Immortal Dragon City's Eternal Radiance, in terms of power, it was enough to attract the attention of the Qin Emperor Stonefeather. The Great Qin dynasty had figured out the Eternal Radiance for a long time and had a lot of understanding of the power of time. However, they were still unable to crack the instant secret. They were actually just short of an epiphany. After obtaining Lin Feng's Instance Radiance, they didn't need to intentionally imitate it. Under the analogy, the path in front of them was immediately clear. If the Immortal Dragon City obtained the Instance Radiance, their power would definitely increase, and it would be a huge increase. Standing on the Immortal Dragon City, Stonefeather gave a faint smile. At his and Lin Feng's level, a simple hint would be enough for them to form a tacit understanding. In the current situation, it was impossible for the Great Qin dynasty to cooperate with the Great Zhou dynasty. Although there were only Emperor Zhou, Liang Pan, and the Grand Imperial Palace, Zhu Hongwu and the Great Wheel of Heavens were already on the way and would arrive soon. If the three great creation treasures worked together, they might be able to defeat Lin Feng. However, in the following battle between Zhou and Qin, the greatest benefits would most likely fall into the hands of the Great Zhou dynasty, who had mobilized their entire nation for this trip to the Yangtze. Compared to Xianmen Tianzong, this was even more unacceptable for Great Qin. However, if all the benefits were taken by Xianmen Tianzong, then Stonefeather naturally wouldn't agree. Previously, he had manipulated the immortal dragon city's abnormal movements to see how Lin Feng would react. At the level of Lin Feng, Stonefeather, and Liang Pan, apart from irreconcilable enmity, there were no eternal friends or enemies. There were only eternal benefits. As long as you had a certain amount of bargaining chips in hand, you could make a corresponding proposition and play your own little calculations. As for whether or not you could succeed and how much you could gain, it all depended on whose means were more brilliant and whose bargaining chips were more abundant. More accurately speaking, even if they had irreconcilable enmity, it wouldn't stop them from cooperating with each other to a certain extent at certain times. However, the enmity between Great Qin and Great Zhou was too deep, and they seriously didn't trust each other. Unless it was absolutely necessary, they wouldn't work together. If there was a better choice, Stonefeather wouldn't work together with Great Zhou. Lin Feng was also very clear about this, so he directly offered a price. For Lin Feng, Stonefeather, and the others, it was best for both sides to work together. You've made a good judgment. You've made a condition that I can't refuse. Stonefeather looked down at Yingzhou Celestial Mountain. Sensing the creation aura of the white jade pillar in the belly of the mountain, he slowly shook his head. Lin Feng didn't lose anything by giving him instant radiance. It could only be said that he shared instant radiance. However, Yingzhou Celestial Mountain and the white jade pillar had truly fallen into Xianmen Tianzong's hands. After the matter at Yingzhou Celestial Mountain was over, there would still be other exchanges between Xianmen, Tianzong, and Great Qin dynasty. With Lin Feng's temperament, he would most likely give Great Qin preferential treatment in some resource exchanges and continue to compensate. However, since Yingzhou Celestial Mountain and the white jade pillar were in his pocket, Lin Feng definitely wouldn't hand them over. However, for Great Qin, obtaining instant radiance made this trip to Yingzhou Celestial Mountain worth it. With both eternal radiance and instant radiance, Immortal Dragon City could raise the concept of time power to a whole new level and create new magic powers. It might not be inferior to Yujing Mountain's Celestial Pole Cosmic Light. However, with both Yingzhou Celestial Mountain and the White Jade Pillar, Xianmen Tianzong's strength would increase even more. However, this was currently a better choice for Great Qin Dynasty and was better than Great Zhou Dynasty. Moreover, if Xianmen Tianzong and Great Qin Dynasty worked together, Great Zhou Dynasty might not just lose Fangzhong Celestial Mountain in this trip to Yingzhou Celestial Mountain. Lin Feng flicked his finger and instant radiance landed on Immortal Dragon City in the distance. Stonefeather put away instant radiance, and the Immortal Dragon City instantly rippled as if it was covered with a layer of water. The color on the boundless city walls gradually disappeared, and it became extremely empty. However, it didn't seem pale and powerless. Instead, it revealed an even more profound concept of power, as if a river of time was surging forward. At the same time, the Grand Imperial Palace, which had been frozen by the celestial pole cosmic light and was staggering, suddenly exploded with a shocking power. Boundless light spread out, and the purplish gold color disappeared, leaving behind only the purest and most primitive light. In this light, one could vaguely see a huge mass of chaotic aura. It was extremely unstable, constantly shaking and distorting. From it came a powerful concept of power that made Lin Feng and Stonefeather turn their heads. In the next instant, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the center of the mass of chaotic aura. The moment this crack appeared, the majestic force seemed to want to tear the major thousand world into two. The entire Ingzhou Sea was shaking, and even the creation of the major thousand world outside seemed to be shaking. The terrifying power that could tear the world actually tore the celestial pole cosmic light apart. Lin Feng and Stonefeather stared at that crack and said in unison, "Emperor Heaven's splitting technique." During the end of the primordial era, the human race rose up and fought against the demon race. Starting from the first human emperor, Emperor Shi Huang, they fought continuously. The war lasted for many years, and human experts were born one after another and then fell. It was only until the Taishu Taoist and the Grand Emperor duo rose up and fought a great battle with the demon race that the demon race's rule over the human race was completely ended. That was truly an earth-shattering battle. The heaven primordial world that was originally one was directly split into two, turning into the desolate vast land and the divine land. The human race and the demon race each occupied one side. As a result, the Grand Emperor became the last human emperor of the primordial era. At the same time, he was also the first human emperor of the primordial era. Different from Lin Feng's primordial heaven splitting technique, he deduced the changes of creation himself. Back then, the splitting of heaven and earth was personally caused by the Tai Huang Yushare. He personally witnessed everything that happened, comprehending the powerful concept of creation and destruction within, and finally comprehending and creating his own strongest divine ability, the extreme Emperor Heaven splitting technique. Compared to the profoundness and grandeur of Lin Feng's primordial heaven splitting technique, the Grand Emperor Heaven splitting technique was more domineering. Its destructive power was more direct and intense. Without waiting for Lin Feng and Stonefeather to come to an agreement, Liang Pan did not plan to stay after seeing Lin Feng's instant of radiance. He could only give Stonefeather the white jade pillar. He could not give both the white jade pillar and Ingzhou Mountain to Great Qin. The instant of radiance could improve the immortal dragon city. Although its value was slightly lower than the white jade pillar, there was no need for Emperor Stonefeather to choose between seeking a win-win situation with Xianmen Tianzong or the Great Zhou Empire. With the Great Qin Empire and Xianmen Tianzong working together, before Zhu Hongwu and the Great Celestial Wheel arrived, Liang Pan and the Grand Emperor Palace were already in a dangerous situation. If Lin Feng refined Ingzhou Mountain in a short time, Liang Pan would be in even more danger. Therefore, even though Liang Pan's heart was bleeding as he looked at Ingzhou Mountain, he did not hesitate and did not hold back anymore. Even if he had to pay a price, he had to quickly leave this dangerous place. Slowly, Lin Feng said, "It is expected that the Grand Emperor Palace has inherited the Grand Emperor Heaven splitting technique. However, Liang Pan, using the Grand Emperor Heaven splitting technique, which has not fully recovered, is like drinking poison to quench one's thirst. Not only will you not be able to unleash the full power of the Grand Emperor Heaven splitting technique, but you will also injure the Grand Emperor Heaven splitting technique. However, so what if it is the Grand Emperor Heaven splitting technique?" Lin Feng formed hand seals with both hands and brought them together. Purple qi flowed on Yujing Mountain, and the leaves of the mysterious sky treasure tree swayed. The cosmic light of the extreme celestial pole that had been shattered healed once again. Like flowing water, it once again enveloped the Grand Emperor Palace. Furthermore, it was even more powerful than before. Liang Pan had been holding back. In order to guard against Stonefeather and the immortal dragon city, how could Lin Feng use his full power? Chapter 792. After being trapped by the extreme universe light once again, Liang Pan's expression was calm. It's a pity that the Grand Imperial Palace has yet to recover to its peak state. He stood in the throne room of the Imperial Palace, and streams of purple air began to emanate from his body. The aura of an emperor was fully revealed, and within the purple air, there seemed to be a majestic and domineering figure, like the ruler of heaven and earth, emerging, ruling over the world. The moment Liang Pan's sovereign descent purple aura that he inherited from the Grand Imperial Palace appeared, The Grand Imperial Palace's aura surged once again, and the purple-gold light surrounding the palace became increasingly intense. An enormous purple figure vaguely appeared in the sky above the Grand Imperial Palace. It had a majestic expression, as if the Grand Imperial Palace had been reborn. The enormous power shook the world, and the chaotic air mass formed by the extreme Emperor Heaven splitting art completely split apart. The air mass split into two, and each half gradually condensed into a slightly smaller complete air mass. This process that happened in an instant seemed to replay the scene of the vast thousand world splitting into the divine land and infinite wilderness vastland during the end of the primordial epoch. Boundless spirit Shi was destroyed, and the enormous spatial domain was directly torn apart. Through the Grand Imperial Palace, Liang Pan pushed the power of the extreme Emperor Heaven splitting art to the extreme, causing the space of the Ying Sea to tremble violently. The void kept shattering, and through the shattered spatial cracks, Lin Feng and Stonefeather could even see a trace of the dark starry sky universe. The Grand Imperial Palace's extreme Emperor Heaven splitting art directly tore a huge crack in the spatial domain of the Yingxi world. Such a majestic power once again tore apart the extreme universe light of Yujing Mountain. However, the many lights and figures on the Grand Imperial Palace's palaces, billions of subjects, and Buddhas were clearly visible to the naked eye. They were like billions of bubbles bursting continuously. Unfortunately, after charging through the extreme universe light of Yujing Mountain, there was still Stonefeather and Immortal Dragon City blocking the way. Like an endless great wall that spanned across the heavens, Immortal Dragon City pressed down on the Grand Imperial Palace. Meanwhile, Lin Feng also activated Yujing Mountain to move forward again, and together with Immortal Dragon City, they attacked the Grand Imperial Palace from the front and back. However, at this moment, Lin Feng, Liang Pan, and Stonefeather's hearts suddenly stirred, and they looked towards the distant sea from the corner of their eyes. There was nothing worth paying attention to within their line of sight. But Lin Feng and the others clearly felt the sound of a cicada ringing in their ears just now. Lin Feng's pupils shrank slightly. His gaze pierced through the distance and saw a cicada's slough rising and falling with the waves in the azure sea. That cicada slough looked like a leaf. Even if an ordinary person stood in front of it, they might not be able to notice it. However, with Lin Feng's eyesight, he naturally saw it clearly. The cicada's skin glowed with a faint golden light. The next moment, a young monk in gray appeared in the golden light. It was Golden Cicada. He put his palms together and smiled at Lin Feng. "Secmaster Lin, you've really broadened my horizons. I'm impressed. Although this poor monk has also made some arrangements, I'm unable to determine the teleportation location like Secmaster Lin. Please excuse me, fellow Taoists. It wasn't easy for me to come back to Anghai, but it's relatively close to here. I thought that Mount Penglai should have been settled, so I simply came here. Please forgive me for my rudeness." Although he spoke politely, his movements were not slow at all. He took a step forward and was about to ascend Ingzhou Immortal Mountain. Experts in the Dharma-ending realm were not only powerful in terms of strength, but also in terms of many strange methods. Even Lin Feng was slightly surprised. He did not expect Golden Cicada, whom he had tricked and sent to Infinite Wilderness, to arrive faster than Zhu Hongwu, who was also in Anghai. That person must also have a divine ability to travel between realms, and even had a rough positioning teleportation ability, which was why he was able to return to Anghai so quickly. However, as he said, the teleportation location was far from the southern part of Anghai, but closer to Ingzhou Immortal Mountain in the northeast. As soon as Golden Cicada returned to Anghai, he also sensed the movement of the huge illusory ocean tide in the southern part of Anghai. He knew that there was no hope for Mount Penglai, so he simply rushed to Ingzhou Immortal Mountain. He had no interest in rescuing Liang Pan. His target was Ingzhou Immortal Mountain. Before Lin Feng's God of War clone refined Ingzhou Immortal Mountain, once Golden Cicada ascended the mountain, no one could stop him. Zhu Yi had mastered the white jade pillar and could suppress others, but was useless against Golden Cicada. Lin Feng's gaze was calm. Master, you must have had a hard journey. Take a rest first. As he spoke, Yujing Mountain suddenly flashed, and the light of universe of the extreme heavenly pole fell toward Golden Cicada, trying to envelop him. Golden Cicada looked up at Lin Feng and said softly, I haven't asked, Sect Master Lin, how many times can you withstand the Dharma-ending tribulation? As he spoke, the sound of cicadas rang out, and the shadow of a giant cicada appeared in the void above Golden Cicada's head. Suddenly, a dark black aura on the giant cicada turned into a straight black line and shot toward Lin Feng and Yujing Mountain. The Deva's 5 decays, the Dharma-ending tribulation. In order to prevent Lin Feng's realm-breaking stone from moving it away again, Golden Cicada did not use any mystical abilities this time. He attacked Lin Feng with a Dharma-ending tribulation, not because of its power, but because he wanted to hit the target. Wherever the black aura passed, even the light of universe of the extreme heavenly pole began to decay, weaken, and collapse. Under the corrosion of time, all things in the world would age and die. The only difference was the speed. But when the world came to an end, it would usher in nirvana, and all things would return to nothingness. Even time would no longer exist. Everything would wait for the next creation to begin again. Without Lin Feng and Yujing Mountain holding him back, Liang Pan fought Stonefeather alone. The purple gold radiance above the Grand Emperor Palace suddenly turned purple. A large number of ancient and mysterious runes with unknown meanings appeared on the body of the tall Grand Emperor heroic spirit. Seeing this, Stonefeather frowned slightly. You're killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. Aren't you afraid that the Grand Emperor Palace will directly fall apart? Although that was what he said, if he were in Liang Pan's position, he would definitely make the same choice. Light flickered above the immortal dragon city. 9 light spots suddenly flashed on its body that seemed like the endless river of time. 7 were bright, and 2 were dark. An illusory crack opened in the sky above the Ying Sea, revealing the universe's stars. Among them, the 9 glorious stars flickered together, and a majestic force strengthened the immortal dragon city. The 2 creation Dharma treasures collided head-on again. The immortal dragon city was shaken back, and above the Grand Emperor heroic spirit's light shadow was almost shattered. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Grand Emperor Palace turned into a purple light and fled into the distance. The immortal dragon city followed closely, not giving the other party any chance to breathe. On the other side, above the Yingzhou immortal mountain, Lin Feng sat on Yujing Mountain, his expression unchanged. How many Dharma-ending tribulation can Master withstand? As he spoke, the branches and leaves of the mystic heaven treasure tree at the peak of Yujing Mountain swayed violently. A large number of branches and leaves even fell from the trunk. These dark green branches and leaves turned into rays of 7-colored light in midair, surrounding Yujing Mountain and sweeping the entire mountain into the void. Golden Cicada's Dharma-ending tribulation mist. Golden Cicada looked surprised. He looked at Yujing Mountain and saw that it was faintly discernible in the void. He could clearly see it, but it had completely disappeared from his senses. Once the Dharma-ending tribulation was activated, it was not something that the opponent could avoid by hiding in the void. This was the power of world-destroying collapse. It triggered the opponent's Deva's 5 decrepit phenomena. At the same time, the caster would also have to bear the same Dharma-ending tribulation. But now, the result was that Golden Cicada had suffered a Dharma-ending tribulation for nothing, while Lin Feng and Yujing Mountain had avoided it. Golden Cicada's gaze fell on the swaying branches and leaves of the mystic heaven treasure tree at the peak of the mountain. It's not the mountain rocks, but the mystery of that strange tree. The next moment, the circles of 7-colored light surrounding Yujing Mountain disappeared. Lin Feng and Yujing Mountain reappeared in the world. The tall heaven punishment sword case stood beside Lin Feng. Lin Feng patted the sword case with his right hand, and a clear, ferocious light soared into the sky. The heaven punishment sword had already fallen into Lin Feng's hand. Golden Cicada chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice. The giant cicada shadow above his head flapped its wings, and rays of dark light filled the sky, blocking Lin Feng's heaven punishment sword light. However, he was blocked by Lin Feng and could not go up Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. With just this slight delay, Yingzhou Immortal Mountain suddenly shook. The nameless ancient array that had originally collapsed reassembled once again, trying to cover the Immortal Mountain. Seeing this, Golden Cicada knew that Yingzhou Immortal Mountain had been refined by someone. The power fluctuation was similar to that of Lin Feng. Therefore, he did not stay any longer and directly turned to leave, lest he be surrounded and attacked by Lin Feng using Yingzhou Immortal Mountain and the power of the Yingzhou Sea. At the same time, a wheel of light rose from the distant sea level like the sun. The heavy clouds above the Yingzhou Sea could not conceal its brilliance. The next moment, the wheel of light was already close and smashed towards the immortal dragon city. Even with Stonefeather's cultivation level, standing on the immortal dragon city and facing this wheel of light, he felt as if the sky and earth were collapsing and the endless world was collapsing together. Great Wheel of Heavens. Zhu Hongwu, it's a pity that you're a step too late. Stonefeather turned to look at Yingzhou Immortal Mountain with a slightly complicated expression. He drove the immortal dragon city and collided with the great wheel of heavens driven by Zhu Hongwu, who had rushed to rescue Yangpan. On Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, the cultivators of Great Zhou and Great Qin sensed that the nameless ancient formation had reconstructed again. They also realized that the immortal mountain had been refined by someone else and did not dare to stay any longer. They all left the mountain and fled. Lin Feng did not make things difficult for these people. The wheel of light gradually shrank and revealed Zhu Hongwu's figure. He swept up all the cultivators of the Great Zhou Empire and looked expressionlessly at Yujing Immortal Mountain and Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. Behind the radiance of the Great Wheel of Heavens, the Grand Imperial Palace was revealed. However, the originally majestic Grand Imperial Palace was now faintly showing signs of decline. Within the palace, Emperor Liangpan of Zhou also looked at Yujing Immortal Mountain and Yingzhou Immortal Mountain expressionlessly. Let's go, Hanwu. Today's matter can no longer be carried out. The illusory sea tide that was triggered in the distance was already right in front of them. When Yingzhou Immortal Mountain came into contact with the illusory sea tide, it would automatically hide, while Lin Feng and Yujing Immortal Mountain could hide in the void and disappear. Even if they did not leave, with Yujing Immortal Mountain and Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, Lin Feng could join forces with Stonefeather to face the combination of the Grand Imperial Palace, the Great Wheel of Heavens, and Golden Cicada. Moreover, the relationship between Great Zhou and Golden Cicada might not be better than the relationship between Great Zhou and Great Qin. Whether to fight or stay, the initiative was completely in Lin Feng's hands. Official. Yes. Edict. Zhu Hongwu's eyes flickered as he replied word by word. Even if he had a firm will, he felt extremely depressed in the face of such a situation where he could not use his strength. He had painstakingly crossed half of Yingzhou Immortal Mountain to reinforce them. He had rushed quickly and finally arrived with great difficulty, but everything had already been settled. He had nothing to do with it. All his efforts had become a joke and a futile effort. Chapter 793. Even if they were unwilling, the Great Zhou Emperor and his ministers could only retreat helplessly. It was just that their losses in this trip to Yinghai were too great. Not only did they not get Yingzhou Mountain and Penglai Mountain, they even lost Fangzhong Mountain that they already had. The Grand Imperial Palace, which had not yet recovered to its peak state, suffered new injuries before it recovered. Originally, they were the organization that held the greatest advantage with the appearance of the three mountains. They had even used the strength of their entire country, yet they ended up in such a miserable state in the end. How could Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu not feel gloomy about this? In fact, Lin Feng used Penglai Mountain to lose to Fangzhong Mountain. Even if they managed to snatch Yingzhou Mountain, they would still suffer a loss. They had planned for many years, made many preparations, and invited external help like Tao Master Luo Fu. These were all huge costs. If they could not get the second mountain, these costs would all be for naught. Only by obtaining Yingzhou Mountain and the White Jade Pillar together could their wounded hearts be comforted. However, it was a pity that the Immortal Mountain and the magical treasure embryo of creation were just illusions in the end. Zhu Hongwu put away the great celestial wheel and returned to the Grand Imperial Palace with a gloomy expression. "We did not do our job well and ruined your Majesty's plan." Liang Pan shook his head slightly, and his expression had completely recovered. "We can't blame you. The Great Zhou's failure this time is related to 2 points. First, the secret of our control of Fangzhong Mountain was exposed too early. Second, I was too greedy. The Great Zhou's control of Fangzhong Mountain gave them a huge advantage in fighting for the 3 mountains. However, the news was leaked in advance, causing the Great Zhou Empire to become the target of public criticism. The other forces all focused their attention on the Great Zhou Empire. At the same time, they would subconsciously unite to resist the Great Zhou Empire when the conditions were equal. Under such circumstances, the Great Zhou Empire still attacked on 2 fronts, attempting to take Penglai Mountain and Yingzhou Mountain in one go. Monopolizing the 3 mountains further increased the difficulty of the operation. Liang Pan sat on the dragon throne in the main hall of the Grand Imperial Palace and sighed with a smile. Being too greedy will indeed blind one's rationality. I will take today's matter as a warning. Zhu Hongwu and the other Great Zhou officials said in unison, "We are guilty." Xiao Dongtian, the leader of the Eastern Sky Gate, who had already returned to the Grand Imperial Palace, sighed. If not for the leader of the Celestial Gate, the matter of our Great Zhou controlling the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain would not have been leaked in advance. If not for Xianmin Tianzong's interference, even if we were to obtain 2 mountains at the same time, we might still have had a chance. Eastern Heavenly Gate had always kept a low profile. This time, their plan to seize the 3 mountains for the Great Zhou dynasty had been completely exposed. Not only had they lost 2 Dharma treasures, but they had also lost their secrecy. This was an immeasurable loss. Silently, Zhu Hongwu said, "Even without Lin Feng, there could still be Zhang Feng and Li Feng. Instead of thinking about these things, why don't we reflect on how we can do better?" He put his hands behind his back and curled his fingers. "I'll give you what you've always wanted." Xiao Dongtian's eyes were as deep as the ocean. He raised his white eyebrows and looked at Zhu Hongwu. After the 2 of them looked at each other calmly for a while, Xiao Dongtian nodded. "I will also give you what you want." Liang Pan, who was sitting on the dragon throne, did not move. He looked at Xiao Dongtian and said warmly, "Official Xiao, go and get some materials and treasures later. Quickly repair the Xiantian seal of your Eastern Heavenly Gate." The Great Zhou dynasty lost the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain, which was equivalent to losing their base in the Ying Ocean. In the future, it would be much more difficult to obtain treasures from the Ying Ocean. At the same time, the damage to the Grand Imperial Palace would require a large amount of resources to repair. However, Liang Pan did not hesitate to issue a decree to help Xiao Dongtian repair the Xiantian seal. Xiao Dongtian's white eyebrows twitched. Not only did he not feel happy, but he sighed. However, his expression was calm as he replied respectfully, "This old subject thanks your Majesty for your kindness." After a slight pause, he said even more respectfully, "My daughter's cultivation is not good enough. She has lost the alchemy calligraphy iron voucher your Majesty bestowed. This old subject is ashamed, so I ask your Majesty for another meeting on behalf of my daughter. I hope your Majesty can be magnanimous." A faint smile appeared at the corner of Liang Pan's lips. He said unhurriedly, "Approved." Sword Venerable Watching Tide sent a voice transmission to Sword Venerable Vast Sea. Sect leader, Xiao Dongtian, is demanding an exorbitant price. Does he think that the Great Zhou dynasty's setback this time gives him the right to raise the price? Although the Great Zhou dynasty's trip to the Ying Ocean this time was a failure, it hasn't reached the point where their vitality is truly damaged, right? Sword Venerable Vast Sea did not answer the question. Xiao Dongtian is a smart person. He is one step faster than me, but his Eastern Heavenly Gate is indeed a little stronger than our Vast Sea Sword sect. Since he is one step ahead, it's not good for me to imitate him. Sword Venerable Watching Tide was confused. Sect leader, Sword Venerable Vast Sea, he shook his head slightly. How can it be a free lunch in this world? Sect leader, you mean that Xiao Dongtian is doing the opposite? Sword Venerable Watching Tide seemed to have understood something. He chuckled and said, he is indeed a sly old fox. Isn't he afraid that the great Zhou dynasty will give him a mission that will break the teeth of his Eastern Heavenly Gate? Sword Venerable Vast Sea shook his head without saying anything, but there was a hint of worry in his eyes. Before today, the great Zhou dynasty had always been developing at a high speed. They were high-spirited and continuously expanding. This time, if they could really obtain Mount Penglai and Yingzhou Immortal Mountains at the same time and completely control the Ying Ocean, they would be able to defend it for a period of time. The great Zhou dynasty's national strength would definitely soar again. However, things did not go according to their wishes. In the end, the great Zhou dynasty's strength declined instead of increasing. The failure of the Ying Ocean incident also hindered the great Zhou dynasty's momentum of expansion. The great Zhou dynasty had to handle every step carefully. Otherwise, not only would the momentum of development be interrupted, but there was also the possibility of a decline. They could not afford to be careless. What should the Shanghai Sword Sect do? Just like the Eastern Heavenly Gate, the Vast Sea Sword Sect and the Great Zhou Dynasty were so close that they were almost inseparable. Unlike Sword Venerable Vast Sea's gloomy heart, Xinmin Tianzong could be described as overjoyed. After bidding farewell to Stonefeather and the others, Lin Feng rode Mount Yujing and disappeared into the void. Meanwhile, the illusory ocean mystique tide devoured the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain that had been refined by his god of battle clone. The huge immortal mountain instantly disappeared in the misty illusion of the Ying Ocean. Tens of millions of transparent jade plates appeared once again. They stacked on top of each other and formed a huge transparent sphere, wrapping the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain like a shell. This was the nameless ancient formation that Lin Feng received the power of the Ying Ocean after refining the Immortal Mountain, allowing it to regenerate. However, it would still take a long time for it to recover to its peak strength. On the other hand, the core illusion of the Immortal Mountain had taken shape once again. Lin Feng attached great importance to this core illusion. Zhu Yi, Xiao Yin, and the others who had entered the illusion had comprehended the divine abilities of Dao Master Hao Yang and Dao Master Looming Shadow through the combination of the starlight and the illusion. Meanwhile, the core illusion of the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain could refine the soul imprints of most of the cultivators that died in the Ying Ocean into starlight. Although according to Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, and the others, it was difficult to deduce the Dao manuals, and they could only comprehend the divine abilities and bring them out. Furthermore, it was only a portion of the divine abilities, but it was still a priceless treasure trove. Relatively speaking, the bigger problem was that the starlight that had collapsed in the illusion could not be condensed again. In other words, a cultivator only had one chance to condense the starlight into a cultivator's soul imprint. In order to break the core illusion, Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, Monk Dekong, Shi Xingyun, and the others had fought continuously, causing most of the starlight in the illusion to collapse. The collapsed starlight turned into a ray of red light that gathered at the center of the galaxy, forming the door to break the illusion. However, Lin Feng believed that as time passed, most of the cultivators that died in the Ying Ocean would have their soul imprints intercepted by the mysterious power of the Ying Ocean and turned into starlight in the illusion. Before Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, and the others had ascended the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, the defense of the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain had actually become very weak after countless years of attacks by countless powerhouses. After Lin Feng refined the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, he realized that the core illusion had many other wonderful uses. For example, he could release all the starlight stored in it to face the enemy. Within a short period of time, each cluster of starlight could unleash the strength of the previous owner of the soul imprint. Although the starlight would quickly dissipate after leaving the illusion, the number and quality of the powerhouses had accumulated to a certain extent. When hundreds of starlight faced the enemy together, the power would be extremely impressive. Apart from the nameless ancient array and the core illusion, there were many other restrictions in the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. However, Lin Feng had just refined the Immortal Mountain, and there were still many things that he needed to carefully study. In terms of resources, apart from the core illusion, the most valuable thing in the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain was the jasmine spring that had once nourished the Li Qing jade table. Lin Feng carefully sensed the spirit qi in it and realized that the spring water indeed had a unique advantage in nourishing Dharma treasures. It was priceless. As for the other spirit flowers, spirit herbs, resources, and minerals, they were also very abundant. Due to the existence of the Immortal Mountain, it was much easier for Xianmin Tianzong to obtain the many treasures in the sea outside the Immortal Mountain. Master, we've had a great harvest this time. Xiaoyan smiled and went up to greet Lin Feng with the others. After bowing, he pointed at Zhu Yi, especially second junior brother. You've really earned a lot this time. Zhu Yi, who had always been indifferent, was also full of smiles at this moment. However, he was neither arrogant nor humble. We've indeed gained a lot. His Haoyang clone carried the huge white jade pillar and came before Lin Feng. Master, please handle this. Lin Feng smiled. This is your own opportunity. I won't interfere. I'll only give you some pointers to help you refine this treasure properly. If you can successfully refine a Dharma treasure of creation in the future, it'll be a good story. Zhu Yi blinked and bowed solemnly to Lin Feng. Thank you, Master. Although they knew that according to the usual practice, Lin Feng would not take the treasures that they obtained because of their personal opportunities in most cases, a Dharma treasure of creation embryo like the white jade pillar was too valuable and had a completely different meaning. Even the Taishu Temple, Mount Shu Sword Sect, and the Great Zhou Dynasty would take it for public use. On one hand, it was for safety reasons, and, on the other hand, it was to ensure that the sacrificial refining was successful and not wasted. In the whole world, Lin Feng was probably the only master who would leave a treasure like the white jade pillar to the disciple who found it. Chapter 794. Xiao Yin and the others looked at Zhu Yi and the white jade pillar carried by Hao Yang's doppelganger. They were not jealous, but more or less envious. The rarity of Dharma treasures of creation was needless to say. Strictly speaking, there was not a single Dharma treasure of creation in the entire Xianmen Tianzong. In the Divine Land, there were only 6 Dharma treasures of creation whose whereabouts were known. They were the Haotian Mirror, the Taishu Temple, the Immortal Sword, the Immortal Dragon City, the Great Celestial Wheel, and the Grand Imperial Palace. Whether it was the light ball in the Yinyang Sea under Yujing Mountain, the Book of Life and Death in the hands of the Master of the Nether Temple, or the Ruthless Emperor's most powerful Dharma treasure, the Ruthless Emperor's battle armor, which was destroyed in the hands of Xiao Yan, they were just like the white jade pillar, with the hope of achieving creation. Just like the light ball in the Xintian realm, the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain used the power of the Yinghai Sea to create this white jade pillar, which was also a miracle that could not be replicated. Zhu Yi had obtained such a great opportunity before reaching the primordial spirit realm, which made everyone in the great heaven primordial world go crazy with envy. Of course, having the hope of achieving creation didn't mean that success was guaranteed. Sometimes, hope was very unpredictable. There were winners like the Immortal Dragon City, but there were also losers like the Ruthless Emperor's battle armor. Zhu Yi's eyes were clear. He could naturally feel Lin Feng's trust and expectations in him. These things did not become pressure on him, but made him more spirited. Master, I will handle it carefully. Zhu Yi paused for a while and said, I want to cultivate in seclusion on Yujing Mountain for some time. Having confidence does not mean being blindly arrogant. Zhu Yi has obtained Lin Feng's permission to keep the white jade pillar, so naturally he will not wander around randomly. An ordinary man is innocent, but treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. Carrying a precious treasure and parading through the streets, that is clearly telling other people to hurry up and rob them. Lin Feng faintly smiled. Xiaoyi, carefully analyze this white jade pillar. It will also be of great benefit to your own cultivation. Zhu Yi nodded. Yes, I understand. At this moment, Jie Yu and Bai Guang walked forward and bowed to Lin Feng together. Bai Guang said, Thank you, Senior Lin, for allowing me to accompany you. Junior has benefited a lot from this Yingzhou Immortal Mountain, but I haven't been of much help. I feel guilty. Lin Feng glanced at her. Did you also enter the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain's core illusion? White Light replied, Precisely so. After Junior entered the illusionary realm, the Starlight Divine Soul imprint I entrusted originated from a Dragon King of my Dragon Clan who achieved an indestructible demon soul. Fusing with his divine soul, it allowed me to gain quite a lot. Yes, Lin Feng said, after cultivating in seclusion for a while, you could try to break through to the late stage of the Demon King realm and form the Dharma form. Jie and White Light bowed together again. Many thanks for your guidance. Lin Feng smiled and said, No need to thank me. This is your own opportunity. I brought you to Yingzhou Immortal Mountain to take a look at the Dragon Clan who also came for the Three Mountains. Perhaps there would be opportunities for you and your wife. As they spoke, Lin Feng's Brontosaurus clone had also arrived at Yingzhou Immortal Mountain and said with a loud voice, But now, it seems that I don't need to do anything unnecessary. Xiao Yin smiled and said, Master, we obtained Yingzhou Immortal Mountain this time, and second junior brother even obtained a creation treasure embryo, so we didn't come here for nothing. You even made the great Zhou dynasty lose Fangzhong Immortal Mountain, but it's a pity that Penglai and Fangzhong Immortal Mountains have disappeared again. If it were up to me, it would be great if the Three Mountains could fall into our sex control. Lin Feng smiled mysteriously and sent a voice transmission to Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, Yang Qing, and Li Yuanfang using his mana. Let go of Fangzhong first. Penglai, wait for a while, we'll be there soon. Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, and the rest all perked up, but their expressions did not change. After Jieyu, White Light, Quinniu King, and the rest left, Xiao Yin asked Lin Feng excitedly, Master, what you said just now, that Penglai Immortal Mountain, follow me. Lin Feng chuckled, and the Brontosaurus clone brought Xiao Yin and the rest down Yingzhou Immortal Mountain and traversed through Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. After a while, everyone suddenly felt the void in front of them tremble. Then, the clouds in front of them dispersed, and an immortal mountain that was slightly smaller than Yingzhou Immortal Mountain appeared in front of them, surrounded by the Black Sea. This is Penglai Immortal Mountain? Xianmin Tianzong and the rest were surprised and delighted. Xiao Yin smiled and said, Haha, now that our sect has Penglai and Yingzhou Immortal Mountains in our hands, let's see when we'll give others a surprise. Lin Feng brought them up Penglai Immortal Mountain with a smile. The surging sea automatically parted a path, guiding everyone up the mountain. In a hall on the Immortal Mountain, a tall figure came out to welcome them from afar. He looked like a wolf but stood upright, with 4 limbs like dragon claws, silver white fur, a triangular head, and purple light patterns all over his body. When Grand Luo saw Lin Feng, he immediately bowed and said respectfully, Master Lin. Xiao Yin and the rest looked at Grand Luo curiously. With a few words, Lin Feng introduced them to each other. Although Grand Luo was humble and polite, deliberately suppressing his power, Yang Qing and Li Yuanfang still felt immense pressure. Xiao Yin and Zhu Yi looked at each other. This half-disciple of Master is very unusual. After greeting each other and getting familiar with each other, they behaved more casually. Then, Xiao Yin and the rest went to explore Penglai Immortal Mountain. Lin Feng looked at Grand Luo and asked with a smile, How do you feel? Grand Luo sighed slightly. I've sorted out some fragmented memories and understood some things, but I feel that there are more and more questions. Lin Feng smiled. Don't be impatient. Don't be too hasty. Nurture your spirit first and cultivate the Taoist arts of the demon race. When the time is right, reconstruct your body. Lin Feng paused for a moment. Looking at Grand Luo's gradually calming gaze, he said harmoniously, in the future, head to Tianhuang vast land. You might be able to find more answers there. Grand Luo nodded vigorously. Yes, Master Lin. I understand. He then said with a shameful expression, it's just that although I feel that the demon race's cultivation arts that I inherited from Yohuang's light shadow are extremely compatible with me, as if those arts are engraved in the depths of my soul, there are still some things that I don't understand. Lin Feng said, haste makes waste. Your foundation was slightly weak before, and now that you've come into contact with something too profound, there will naturally be many things that you don't understand. I don't know much about the demon race's cultivation arts, so I can only study them with you. Grand Luo nodded, and his eyes shone with light. A large number of strange runes spewed out from the light and floated in midair. Lin Feng only took a simple glance and felt his brontosaurus clone trembling intensely. The demonic chi, essence blood, and undying demonic soul all resonated together. It's just an incomplete heavenly Tao demon sutra. On Yujing Mountain, Lin Feng's body also trembled slightly as he thought. However, giving up on the Iron Tree clone and specially refining a pure demon clone is truly the right choice. I've indeed taken a wrong path previously. Lin Feng's true body strolled on the peak of Yujing Mountain, pondering as he walked. There were naturally many resources on the Penglai Immortal Mountain that weren't inferior to the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain. However, from Lin Feng's point of view, the most valuable thing, other than the Penglai Immortal Mountain itself, was the fusion of the Sky Sea Golden Pearl and Yohuang's silhouette. Other than that, he had also obtained one of the main ingredients of the 33 Heavens Fortune Immortal Pill, the condensed crystal. This was a secret that belonged solely to Lin Feng. Currently, no one in the Heaven Primordial World knew how great of an impact this treasure would have on Xianmen Tianzong. The Fangzhong Immortal Mountain has already vanished, but I already have Penglai Mountain and Immortal Abode Island in my hands. In addition to that, I've also obtained a bit of the Heaven Heart Abbot Mystic Light back then. The difficulty of finding the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain in the future will be greatly reduced. After I completely refine and control these two immortal mountains, the Immortal Abode Island will truly be half my backyard. At that time, there will really be a surprise waiting for the people who are plotting against the Immortal Abode Island. Compared to the information that the outside world already knew, Xianmen Tianzong's true gains far surpassed everyone's imagination. I wonder if I can find the Fangzhong Immortal Mountain and obtain it before the next Immortal Mountain appears. A short while later, Lin Feng stopped in his tracks. He flipped his hand and took out another item. In the center of his palm was a round disc the size of a walnut. It looked very inconspicuous, black, dirty, and a little tattered. This was the item that his God of Battle clone had specially brought back from the Void battlefield. This item had piqued Lin Feng's interest, as it was the focus of two parties in the Void battlefield. Battles could be seen everywhere in the Void battlefield, so it wasn't rare. However, what caught Lin Feng's attention was that the two parties were both under the Underworld Hall. One party protected the small disc and hid in a ruin in the Void, while the other party launched a sneak attack. They were extremely ruthless, slaughtering all the guards and snatching the disc away. On the other hand, the guards were guarding the disc. They were simply guarding it and did nothing else. On the other hand, the party that was robbing the disc did not refine it. Instead, they quickly left with the disc, as if they were heading somewhere to hand the disc over to someone. Lin Feng captured all the cultivators of the Underworld Hall who were robbing the disc, but they did not know much, as they were only following orders. The only valuable information that Lin Feng managed to obtain from them was that they were here to retrieve the disc under the orders of Emperor Chu Jiang, one of the 10 Yama Kings, and to hand it over to Emperor Chu Jiang. Lin Feng followed the clues they provided and went to the rendezvous point, but he found nothing. A long time after the rendezvous point, Emperor Chujiang still did not show up. It was hard to tell if Emperor Chujiang had noticed that something was not right or if something unexpected had happened. After failing to find anything useful, Lin Feng decided to let his god of battle clone send the disc back to the divine land after pondering for a while. This was because after studying it, Lin Feng discovered that the disc seemed to be a treasure related to the secrets of reincarnation. However, it was a one-time use treasure. After being used by someone, it had become useless and could not be used again. The secrets of reincarnation were extensive and profound. Even Lin Feng had a limited grasp of it. However, he could tell from the traces left behind by the disc that the original user had an extremely high cultivation, so high that he did not seem like someone on the same level as the 10 Yama Kings. Furthermore, the treasure was extremely old and had existed for a long time. The treasure could not be used alone. It needed to be combined with many other treasures of the same type, as well as various secret techniques and rituals in order to be effective. It just so happened that the two parties that were fighting for the disc belonged to the Underworld Hall, which piqued Lin Feng's interest. The scenes of him dealing with the Underworld Hall flashed through his mind. He had a vague idea. Although it was not clear, it was gradually becoming complete. Chapter 795. After thinking for a while, Lin Feng gradually formed a complete train of thought in his mind. Looks like I'll have to wait for some time to verify my guess. After putting away the rebirth plate, that was now like a piece of scrap metal, Lin Feng took out a voice transmission crystal and crushed it. Yan Mingyue's voice came from it. Congratulations on obtaining Yingzhou Mountain, sect leader Lin. Lin Feng smiled. It's naturally a joyous occasion for me, but I'm afraid it might not be the case for Fairy Yan. Yan Mingyue also smiled. How can everything go according to one's wishes? The great Zhou dynasty's decision was wrong, but it can't be helped. Yujing Mountain appeared in the void, and a purple light extended into the distance. Two figures landed on the purple light and were brought to the top of the mountain. One of them was naturally Yan Mingyue, while the other person who traveled with her was somewhat unexpected to Lin Feng. It was Miao Shihao, who had been traveling alone and had not been seen for a long time. What made Lin Feng even more interested was that Miao Shihao, who had always disliked the cultivators from Taishu Temple, did not show any disgust while standing beside Yan Mingyue. Instead, his expression was slightly solemn, as if he was thinking about something and his mind was elsewhere. Only after arriving at Yujing Mountain did Miao Shihao return to his senses. He looked at Lin Feng with glowing eyes. Sect leader. Lin Feng did not wait for him to finish speaking and directly threw something over. Miao Shihao caught it and saw that it was a jade pendant. This jade pendant was rather strange. It looked solid, but it constantly changed its shape like flowing water. At one moment, it was like a round full moon, and at the next, it was like a curved crescent moon. The jade pendant automatically changed between the moon's brightness and brightness, and it did not stop at all. Round jade pendant. Miao Shihao nodded. This was what he wanted. It was a special resource unique to Yingzhou Mountain. However, Miao Shihao was not in a hurry. He casually put away the treasures and continued to stare at Lin Feng with his peach blossom-like eyes. Sect leader, I've been looking for you for so long. Lin Feng pursed his lips and ignored Miao Shihao. He knew that this brother was crazy. The more he paid attention to him, the easier it was for him to get into trouble. Miao Shihao wasn't angry about this. She covered her lips and smiled. Fine, I'll talk to you later. He turned to look at Yan Mingyu, and his smile instantly disappeared. He said indifferently, You have told me a lot of information this time, and it has indeed been of great benefit to me. However, I will not thank you. Taishu Temple's disciple. Yan Mingyue gently tucked her hair behind her ear, her smile still tranquil. You're too polite, true Lord Mirrorflower. I wish you the best of luck in attaining the primordial spirit soon. Miao Shihao raised his eyebrows with a faint smile on his face. He walked to the side, took out a small file, and started to trim his nails. At that moment, Yin Mingwe looked at Lin Feng. Sectmaster Lin, while we are fighting in the Ying Ocean, there are also some noteworthy changes in the Divine Land. Oh, Lin Feng asked calmly, what is it? Yin Mingwe said, the Reincarnation Sect, the Heavenly Human Sect, the Hungry Ghost Sect, and the Animal Sect have joined forces to pretend that they are going to the Ying Ocean to fight. The Azura Sect, the Hell Sect, and the Human Sect think that they can take advantage of this opportunity. So they joined forces to attack the Heavenly Human Sect. In the end, they fell into the trap of the Heavenly Human Sect, the Hungry Ghost Sect, and the Animal Sect, and suffered heavy losses. Now, the Heavenly Human Sect, the Hungry Ghost Sect, and the Animal Sect have started a counterattack. They already have the upper hand in the internal battle of the Reincarnation Sect, and now they are about to win. Lin Feng's expression didn't change. They have been fighting for tens of thousands of years. How can the Azura Sect, the Hell Sect, and the Human Sect fall into their trap so easily? Let's not talk about others. The Taoist sect of the Human Sect, Zhang Enrui, is experienced in the mortal world. Although he doesn't specialize in gambling, he is also good at restraining greed. How can he be so careless? Slowly, Yin Mingwe shook her head. I only got the information from eldest senior brother. I don't know much about the plot. Lin Feng suddenly smiled. Isn't the Taishu Temple going to intervene this time? Thanks to you, sect leader Lin. The appearance of a unified reincarnation sect in the Divine Land is not necessarily a bad thing for the Taishu Temple. Yin Mingwe chuckled. As long as no primordial soul realm cultivator dies, the temple won't intervene. Lin Feng shook his head. I'm afraid that even if a primordial soul realm cultivator dies, as long as the consequences are not too serious, they won't intervene, right? If you want to be like before, you have to wait for the Taishu Temple to regain control of the situation. This is not just because of me. Fairy Yin, you also contributed to this. Yin Mingwe smiled. A rare, playful expression appeared on her face. I am an unfilial disciple. I am about to be expelled from the sect. Lin Feng thought to himself. Yin Yuanjin's action could explain a lot of things. However, Yin Yuanjin, Yin Mingwe, and the others' policies had not been adopted by the Taishu Temple. They were still in the observation stage. Otherwise, they would not have allowed the reincarnation sect to become more and more unified. Compared to the other sects in the Divine Land, the Great Zhou dynasty cared more about the unification of the reincarnation sect. The two sects were neighbors. They were separated by the great swamp of the ancient region, and there had been many conflicts in the past. In the past, the Great Zhou dynasty would not let all this happen when the basic structure of the Divine Land had changed. However, the Great Zhou dynasty had just been weakened by the battle at the Ying High Sea. Xianmen Tianzong controlled the Yingzhou Spirit Mountain, and the Great Qin dynasty controlled the Yingzhou Spirit Mountain. The Great Zhou dynasty could not act as unscrupulously as before. The reincarnation sect had found a great opportunity. How could Shi Tianfeng and the others of the Tao of Heaven know that the Great Zhou dynasty would fall in the Ying High Sea? There must be a lot of tricks in choosing this time to make a move. Lin Feng glanced at Yin Mingwe. The unconventional disciple of the Taishu Temple was still calm, and her emotions did not change at all. After talking about business, Yin Mingwe left the mountain after chatting for a while. Lin Feng sent her off with his gaze. Only then did Miao Shihao, who had been standing at the side with a leisurely expression, open his mouth to speak. Sect leader, Yin Mingwe is no longer the same mind as the conservative faction of the Taishu Temple, but she also doesn't seem to be tied to the Great Zhou dynasty. Just what does she want to do? I should say, they want to open a third path between the conservatives and the radicals of the Taishu Temple. Lin Feng answered lightly. In this process, the conservatives, and the radicals all have their own goals and plans. Sometimes their interests are the same, and they will work together. Sometimes there will be conflicts. At that time, it will depend on who is more skillful. The specific matters are different, so the results will naturally be different. It is possible that they will work together with the conservatives to suppress the radicals. It is also possible that they will work together with the radicals to plot against the conservatives. Sometimes, it is not impossible for the conservatives and radicals to work together to suppress them. Lin Feng smiled. During the Battle of West Hill City, they first worked together with the conservatives and used me to stop the development of the radicals. However, in the next moment, the radicals of the Taishu Temple, Yin Mingyue, and the Great Zhou dynasty worked together to overthrow the fixed order that the conservatives of the Taishu Temple had set for the divine land and the human world. Cooperation and opposition can change at any time. Sometimes for the same thing, they can work together and oppose each other. This is also a very common thing. Miao Shihao had a thoughtful expression on his face. Yin Mingyue is playing such a big game. Yin Yuanjin alone might not be able to protect her. Could it be Taoist Master Qing Yi? Taishu Temple's current disciple relationship in the divine land was well known. Taoist Master Qing Yi taught Yin Nanlai and Meng Bingyun. Yin Nanlai taught Lin Daohan, and Lin Daohan taught Qin Xingyu. Shoichi Daishan taught Kuang Heng, and Kuang Heng taught Shi Tianyi. Taoist Master Qing Yi taught Yin Yuanjin, and Yin Yuanjin taught Yin Mingyue. The situation of Taoist Master Xian Yi's disciples was unknown. Xianlin Taoist and Taoist Master Yun Zhan shared the same master, Taoist Master Yan of the previous generation of Taishu Temple. However, this old man had passed away many years ago. His lineage, which was known to the outside world, was that Taoist Master Yin taught Xianlin Taoist and Taoist Master Yin Zhan, and then Xianlin Taoist taught Pang Jie. In addition, Tai Yi, Zheng Yi, Qing Yi, and the others did not only have descendants like Yin Nanlai, Kuang Heng, and Yin Yuanjin. However, it was difficult for outsiders to spy on White Cloud Mountain, and many things were still covered by the white smoke. Lin Feng smiled and said, "That's not necessarily true. There are many things that are still unknown. For example, was it Yin Mingyue herself who brought up the idea and received the support of Yin Yuanjin and the others behind her? Or was it the people behind her who had the idea and pushed Yin Mingyue to the front as the spokesperson?" Miao Shihao thought for a moment and shook his head. "Forget it. Let's not think about it for now." He looked up at Lin Feng and said, "Sect leader, Yin Mingyue told me some things just now." Miao Shihao, who was always enchanting and charming, had a rare solemn expression on his face. After listening to him tell the whole story, Lin Feng also had a thoughtful look on his face. "It's roughly the same as what I expected, but there are some unexpected things." "What's your next plan?" Lin Feng asked. Miao Shihao lowered his eyes and answered, "Naturally, I'll first form my nascent divinity, then look for a successor. After teaching him, I'll set out to look for him. When the time comes, I hope you can take care of my successor for me, sect leader." Lin Feng nodded and said, "Don't worry about that. As for what you're looking for, the others in the sect can also help you." Miao Shihao smiled brightly and looked at Lin Feng from the corner of his eyes. "Sect leader, I know you still care about me." Lin Feng's mouth twitched, and he almost slapped him. "I knew it. After a few words at most, he'll be abnormal again." After chasing Miao Shihao away, Lin Feng shook his head and drove Mount Yujing away from Ingoshan, returning to the Kunlun mountain range. Ingzhou Immortal Mountain was guarded by the clone of the god of war, while Penglai Immortal Mountain was controlled by the clone of Brontosaurus. As time passed, the illusory sea bewilderment tide would spread throughout the entire Ocean realm. Lin Feng drove Mount Yujing back to the divine land. He thought, after obtaining the Galaxy Purple Zoisha pill, I'll have all the ingredients to refine the 33 Days Fortune Immortal pill. Chapter 796. Lin Feng and the others returned to the Kunlun mountain range. Not long after they arrived, Dao Jiqiang in Cloud Mirror City sent the news that they had successfully traded the Galaxy Purple Ganoderma pill. This was a mission that Lin Feng had set up a few years ago. It's just that even though the Milky Way Purple Zoisha pill is not unique to Mount Penglai, like the condensed crystals, it is still an extremely rare treasure. Its production is mainly in the desolate ancient star sea. Now that the desolate ancient star sea was in the hands of the demon clan, it was not easy to get the treasures produced in the divine land. The galaxy purple Ganoderma pill itself was also rare in the desolate ancient star sea. Dao Jiqiang spent a lot of time, energy, and a lot of money to finally collect the amount that Lin Feng needed. Lin Feng looked at the purple pill in front of him. Without Lin Feng activating his supernatural power, it could float in the air on its own like a life that could fly. The deep purple surface flickered with fragmented yet numerous rays of light, like a sky full of stars. Anyone who saw it couldn't help but feel intoxicated. It's a pity that the amount is only enough to open the furnace once. Lin Feng's eyes were calm, and he thought to himself, the desolate ancient star sea. He put away the Milky Way purple Ganoderma pill, and with a light touch of his finger, a cloud of mist appeared in his palm. Amidst the misty clouds, a crystal could be vaguely seen. The mist gathered and dispersed, forming the shape of a crystal when it gathered, and when it dispersed, it turned into mist again. Looking carefully, after the cloud condensed into a crystal, a faint mist could be seen swaying inside the crystal, which was quite mysterious. This was the condensed crystal produced in Mount Penglai. In the past, when the three mountains of Yangtze had just appeared, no one could really successfully refine Mount Penglai. Before that, someone had briefly climbed the Spirit Mountain and brought out this treasure from the mountain. In the knowledge of the great Tianyuan world, the condensed crystal was not a spiritual medicine, but a good material for refining weapons, but no one used it to refine elixirs. Now that Lin Feng has obtained Mount Penglai, he doesn't have to worry about the amount of condensed crystals. The feather spirit vine that he won from the reincarnation sex Devis Shun Chifeng before, after a period of nurturing, although the scale is still not large, it is enough to specifically supply the refinement of one type of pill. On the other hand, the galaxy purple Zoisha pill needed to be cherished. Thinking of this, Lin Feng called Xiao Yin over. After Xiao Yin arrived, his face was obviously excited. Lin Feng glanced at him and said with a smile, "Are you going to talk to Xiao Yi about what you've gained in the Yingzhou Immortal Mountain's core illusory realm?" Xiao Yin nodded with a smile and said, "The Astro Sovereign's martial art deserves its reputation. The 28 Constellations Divine Fist is based on the mysteries of the 28 constellations of the four symbols in the heavens. They are divided into the Azure Dragon, the White Tiger, the Vermilion Bird, and the Black Tortoise, and each of them is 7 constellations. I've verified my own martial arts, and I've gained a lot." Lin Feng said, "In the primitive times, there were many human cultivators who practiced martial arts. Even the human sovereigns in the primitive times were relatively more powerful martial artists. However, because of many reasons, the martial arts of the human race in the primitive times were not passed down, and there were not many merits to learn from them. In the ancient times, Taoism became more and more prosperous, and all kinds of secret methods emerged one after another. Strictly speaking, the Astro Sovereign was the only one who could ascend to the throne of the human sovereign with only the power of martial arts. The power of his martial arts could be seen from this. Although Hao Yang, Master Wang Hao, who died in the Yinghai Sea, was the direct disciple of the Astro Sovereign, he didn't get all the skills of the Astro Sovereign. In the whole human cultivation world in the ancient times, the power of Astro Sovereign's martial arts was at the top level. Lin Feng looked at Xiao Yin and said, "If you want it, you can use the Taoism of our sect as the foundation to figure out the martial arts you got from Hao Yang. What you have gained now will be possible to further expand your martial arts. It will be beneficial for both of you to communicate with Xiaoyi's clone of Hao Yang. Our sect's Taoism is the foundation, but you can learn from others. As your master, I always encourage you to learn from others and broaden your horizons." Xiao Yin nodded and said, "Master, don't worry. I understand." "Well, I guess Xiao Yi must have gained a lot from your guidance on the magic arts of the Shadow Demon Doctrine, right?" Lin Feng smiled and asked. Xiao Yin also smiled, really talking about it. "Back then when we entered that illusion, if the starlight that second junior brother and I had entrusted swapped, the power we could unleash in that illusion would definitely be even stronger." Lin Feng shook his head and said with a smile, "It is actually a good thing to let you practice in an environment where you can only fight with your weak points. It will be more beneficial for you." He gave the formula of the 33 days fortune immortal pill and all kinds of materials to Xiao Yin and said, "Next, look at this." Xiao Yin saw the formula and glanced over the content on it. He couldn't help but be surprised. Condensed crystal? Flying chalcedony? These are all materials for refining weapons. How can they be used to make pills? But very quickly, the stunned expression on Xiao Yan's face faded, and replacing it was seriousness, as well as faint shock. He read the formula slower and slower. After reading it once, he read it again. This time, he read it word by word. After a while, Xiao Yan let out a long breath and regained his composure. He looked at Lin Feng seriously and said, "Master, this 33 days fortune immortal pill is amazing. If there really is such a miraculous medicinal effect, then to our celestial sect of wonders, it will definitely cause an earth-shattering change." Lin Feng said calmly, "The effect is real. Don't doubt it. Cultivation depends on the individual. Pills are only an aid. However, if it can be used in the right place, it will definitely have a corresponding effect." Xiao Yan nodded and said, "That's right. I will go back to Heaven Gold Pavilion to prepare. I must make this 33 days fortune immortal pill." He was very excited. He was even more excited than when he learned the martial arts of the Astro Sovereign from Zhu Yi. It's not that Xiao Yin covets the medicinal effect of the 33 days fortune celestial pill, but that he is proficient in pill refining, and he is also quite interested in this. Right now, seeing such a rare and expensive pill formula, it is hard for him to not be tempted. After checking the materials, he frowned and said, "There are too few Galaxy Purple Zoysha pills. I can only use it once." The purple-clothed and black-robed handsome young man looked at Lin Feng with bright eyes. "Master, after the preparations are done, let's enter the desolate ancient star sea. Even if it's not for the divine god cauldron, it's good to get more Galaxy Purple Zoysha pills." Lin Feng looked at his eldest disciple with a bit of a smile, seeing that his two pupils seemed to have turned into the appearance of Galaxy Purple Zoysha pills, continuously rolling around. After sending Xiao Yin away, Lin Feng walked to the Sutras depository alone. He saw Zhu Yi was still there, making copies of ancient books. He and Xiao Yin had met here just now to exchange their martial arts. They restored what they had gained in the core dreamland of Ingzhou Spirit Mountain into ancient books through the Sutras depository and deduced the incomplete parts with a special effect on the first floor of the Sutras depository. However, in the dreamland of Spirit Mountain, both Dao Master Yuing and Dao Master Hao Yang had incomplete divine soul marks, so the martial arts they could provide were not complete. The scripture depository focused on independent divine arts. If they were incomplete, they could be made up for. For example, the 28 constellations stars divine fist. Even if he only had one move, he could make up for the remaining 27 moves. However, it was impossible to deduce the other martial arts of the Astro King, except for the 28 constellations star godly fist art. Leaving Zhu Yi to continue with his own work, Lin Feng began to try to restore the incomplete heavenly demon scripture he got from the Daluo with the help of the Sutras depository. However, the result was not optimistic. After repeated attempts, Lin Feng was sure that the Sutras depository could only perfect the martial arts of the human clan, but could not help the incomplete martial arts of the demon clan. Lin Feng frowned slightly. He passed through the first and second floors of the Sutras depository and came to the third floor at the top. On the top floor of the third floor of the Sutras depository, Lin Feng sat down calmly and closed his eyes slightly. When he had comprehended the creation of yin and yang dust, cosmic light of extreme and mysterious heavenly escape, Lin Feng had used the third floor of the Sutras depository. Now he climbed here again, carefully comprehending the mystery of the incomplete heavenly demon scripture and constantly comparing it with his own Tao. After a long time, Lin Feng slowly opened his eyes, stood up, and went down the pavilion. I have made the right step in refining the Brontosaurus doppelganger. I have a general direction now, but I still feel that there's a thin layer of fog in front of me, and I can't see clearly." As he was thinking, Lin Feng walked out of the Sutras Depository and strolled on the peak of Jade Capital Mountain. Suddenly, he had a thought. Is Hong Yin going to go through the Thunder Trial? The Thunder Trial of the Void didn't care where you were. As long as you triggered the Thunder Trial would pass through the Void and strike you. Lin Feng turned his eyes to the direction of Snowy Wind Valley and saw the lightning flashing there. At the same time, a faint purple light shot up to the sky and clashed with the Thunder Trial of the Void without flinching. It seemed to be irritated by the toughness and stubbornness of the other party. The Thunder Trial was longer and more violent. However, no matter how violent the Thunder Trial was, it couldn't make the purple light yield. In the end, it gradually disappeared. A violent wave of mana came from Snowy Wind Valley, and it was accompanied by a blazing yang qi, like a volcano in a furnace. In the 5 caves, Fentianya, Qiantian Palace, Nirvana Wonderland, Hiluo Ju, and Light Dance Pavilion, treasure lights shot up to the sky at the same time. A few voices said in unison, "Congratulations, 4th junior sister, for forming your nascent soul in the void and achieving the Yuanying realm. Congratulations, 4th senior sister, for forming your nascent soul in the void and achieving the Yuanying realm." In the sky above Snowy Wind Valley, a purple figure appeared. Her fiery long hair was unrestrained in the air, and it really looked like a raging flame. Hearing the congratulations from Xiao Yin and the others, the true disciples on Jade Capital Mountain came out of their residences and bowed to Yu Hongyan respectfully. The girl with red hair and red eyebrows cupped her fists in the air and bowed to Fentinya and the other 5 caves. Her beautiful face also bloomed with a smile. In the next moment, the girl passed through the void and landed in front of Lin Feng. She knelt on the ground and said, "Disciple greets master." A system notification sounded next to Lin Feng's ears. "Congratulations, host direct disciple, Yu Hongyan, for forming his Yuanying realm within 50 years. The number of disciples under host who have formed their nascent soul within 50 years has now increased to 4. What a sly system. Not counting little Lin Z, the number of disciples under me who have formed their nascent soul within 50 years would be 5. Lin Feng laughed and shook his head. He looked at Yu Hongyan and said with a smile, "Hongyan, congratulations on successfully forming your nascent soul." Even though Yu Hongyan had always been unyielding, he could not hide the excitement in his heart at this moment. He said with a trembling voice, "It's all thanks to Master's guidance and cultivation." Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. "I've shown you the way, but cultivation is up to the individual. You're able to achieve what you have today because of your own innate talent, your willpower, and your own luck. I'm just a guide." He lightly tapped the space between his eyebrows with his right index finger and said with a smile, "That's right. For the 8 of you who have successfully formed your nascent soul, Master will give you a transcendent artifact." Chapter 797. After listening to Lin Feng's words, a smile appeared on Yu Hongyan's face. 4 Yuanying stage cultivators, primordial spirit magic treasures were undoubtedly extremely powerful, especially for cultivators who had just entered the Yuanying stage. Although they could not effectively exert the powerful power of magic treasures, they were still extremely powerful. If used properly, it might even be more powerful than the cultivator himself. Yu Hongyan would definitely be happy to be able to get a magic treasure in the early Yuanying stage. The red-haired girl had never concealed her emotions, so naturally, she was beaming with joy. From a moment he knew that Yu Hongyan was preparing to form his nascent soul, Lin Feng had actually been thinking about what kind of treasure to give to his 4th disciple. Starting from the Golden Elixir period magic treasures, when he was in the Foundation establishment stage, Lin Feng had carefully thought about the gifts he would give to every disciple after they advanced. Every gift was as close to their needs as possible, either to further strengthen their advantages or to make up for their shortcomings. Not a single gift was given blindly. For example, Xiao Yin was bold and brave and did not hesitate to sacrifice himself. His Taoist techniques and supernatural powers were also more than enough to attack, but they seemed to be somewhat lacking in defense. With his personality and fighting style, while he was awe-inspiring when facing the enemy, he was also a hidden risk. Therefore, Lin Feng gave him 5 divine badges with extremely strong defensive power to make up for the strong disciple's self-protection in case of accidents. Yu Hongyin's fighting style was more radical, more wild, and more reckless than Xiao Yan's. From a technical point of view, Yu Hongyin's talent was amazing. Martial arts could be big and open, but it could also be small and meticulous. But from a fighting style, it was the same, which was to move forward, and forward. Moving forward indomitably, at least 90% of the attack would be on the offensive. If the enemy was fierce, she would be even more fierce. Such a desperate fighting style made it difficult for the enemy to resist, but also brought about huge hidden dangers for herself. When Yu Hongyin fought with others, there were very few survivors under her gun. However, she often had to pay a price as well. This style was basically completely integrated into Yu Hongyin's blood and soul, condensing into her martial will. At this point, it was already impossible for her to change. If she really wanted to change it, even if Yu Hongyin's martial arts were not crippled, it would at least be halved, and her essence, spirit would be completely scattered. Therefore, Lin Feng did not intend to correct her. Since he did not want to correct her, he would increase the defensive power of her external Dharma treasures and Dharma artifacts, so that her weakness would no longer be a weakness. Then, she could be at ease and boldly continue to fight head-on against others without any scruples. When Yu Hongyin first entered the sect and was still at the foundation establishment stage, Lin Feng gave her the Golden Elixir period ancient jade armor, which was a defensive armor-type magic weapon. During the Golden Elixir period, it was a Yuaning Dharma artifact, the ghost deity Golden Crown. Although it was not a pure defensive artifact, it was a Dharma artifact that increased both offense and defense. Now that Yu Hongyin had formed her nascent soul, the primordial spirit Dharma artifact that Lin Feng wanted to give her continued his original idea, which was also a defensive Dharma artifact. However, it was not the dragon god heavenly armor that Lin Feng had forged himself. Instead, it was a Dharma artifact that he had exchanged a lot of useless but precious resources through the system. 7 Kill Star Armor. This armor was a spirit-nurturing gray Dharma artifact. It had refined the power of the extremely vicious 7 Kill Star, which made the Dharma artifact extremely powerful in both offense and defense. The 7 Slaughter Stars were also known as the 7 Malefic Stars, and also as the Heavenly Slaughter Stars. They were the constellations that countered the punishment of solitude, and they were also the solitary stars that determined success or failure. They were in charge of killing, and they specialized in the control of life and death. They were the famous general stars, the stars of slaughter, and the stars of calamity. The 7 Kill Star armor refined the power of the 7 Kill Star. As an armor, it had strong defense, but also strong offensive capabilities. It was a combination of offense and defense, and only powerful martial artists could use it. There was another reason why Lin Feng chose to exchange this Dharma artifact for Yu Hongyin. As Yu Hongyin's cultivation level increased, Lin Feng was surprised to find out that this girl could actually resonate with the 7 Kill Star. Although Yu Hongyin's cultivation level was still relatively low, the resonance was very weak. It really existed. Considering this, Lin Feng did not give the dragon god heavenly armor to Yu Hongyin in the end. Instead, he exchanged it for the 7 Kill Star armor. Yu Hongyin took the 7 Kill Star armor from Lin Feng. This Dharma artifact had just come out of the system and had just started nurturing its spirit. The Dharma artifact's spirit was like a newborn baby, and it did not have a clear mind and consciousness. It was suitable for Yu Hongyin to refine, and the two would grow together. Yu Hongyin's fingers brushed across the armor, and she felt that this treasure was very close to her, as if it was extremely close to her. The 7 Killstar armor also vibrated slightly. Although Yu Hongyan was only a Yuanian cultivator, this Dharma artifact showed some kindness. However, the Dharma artifact had refined the power of the 7 Killstar. Even though it was just born, there was still a vicious aura that made people flinch. Yu Hongyan's eyes seemed to light up with red flames, and she felt her murderous intent boiling. She was shocked, but she immediately calmed her emotions, knowing that the 7 Killstar armor had triggered her murderous intent. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Very good, Hongyan. Maintain this self-control. This is also a form of training for you, and it will help you break through to the Essence Soul realm in the future. Yu Hongyan bowed to Lin Feng again. Thank you, Master. The red-haired girl said goodbye to Lin Feng and returned to Snow Wind Valley with the 7 Killstar armor to refine the Dharma artifact and nurture her newly formed Yuaniing at the same time. Other than Yu Hongyan, Yang Qing, who was in the Nirvana Grotto Heaven, also began to cultivate in seclusion. She was preparing to pass the Wind tribulation and advance to the late stage of the Golden Elixir. Yang Qing had accumulated a lot, but she had been stuck in the middle stage of the Golden Elixir because she had been teaching Zhou Yunsong. At this moment, passing the Wind tribulation was much easier than passing the Fire tribulation and the Core Formation tribulation, which made Lin Feng feel very relieved. Su Yunsheng and Su Miaoying returned to Kunlun Mountain with Lin Feng, Zhu Yi, and the others. Su Yunsheng settled his sister down and made some preparations. Then, he said goodbye to Zhu Yi and went out to travel. He had 10 years to break through to the Golden Elixir period and successfully form his core. 10 years later, he would at least have some hope of entering the Heaven Mystic realm to do hard labor. If he couldn't form his core, 10 years later, when he went to the Heaven Mystic realm, he would serve until he died. However, Su Yunsheng wasn't anxious or impatient. He followed the prescribed order and tried his best to take every step steadily. He didn't blindly cultivate in seclusion on Yujing Mountain, but traveled to the outside world to sharpen his mind and Tao. As for his sister, Su Miaoying, she lived in Cloud Mirror City. After she was ready, she also wanted to take the heart-reflecting stairs, hoping to become a disciple of Xinmin Tianzong like her brother. As Lin Feng's personal disciple, Yu Hongyan successfully formed his nascent soul and formed his Yuaniing in less than 50 years. Naturally, many people came to congratulate him, but he didn't shock the whole Divine Land like Wang Lin, Zhu Yi, and the others. It wasn't because Yu Hongyan's achievements weren't outstanding. On the contrary, he was so outstanding that others couldn't feel surprised. After the baptism of Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others, the human clan's cultivation world was now almost numb to the amazing talents of Lin Feng's personal disciples. When would Lin Feng's personal disciple turn out to be a rotten wood that couldn't be carved? When would people be amazed again? In fact, even if Lin Feng had a seemingly mediocre disciple, some people might gloat, but a considerable number of people would still be cautious and wait and see. Wang Lin's example was that those who laughed too early were slapped in the face until today. Every step Wang Lin took was equivalent to another slap on their face, making them feel pain. Maybe one day, a personal disciple of Lin Feng couldn't reach the core formation stage until the end of his life, or he couldn't form his nascent soul even after 1,000 years, and could only helplessly watch himself grow old and die of depression. At that time, it would be regarded as news and spread to the world. However, no matter who it was, they could only sigh helplessly. The probability of such a thing happening was too low, so low that it was completely negligible. As the days passed, the smoke of the battle in the Yinghai Sea dissipated, and the Divine Land returned to peace again, but the undercurrents were still turbulent. The heavenly realm of the reincarnation sect, led by Shi Tianfeng, finally saw the dawn of unifying the reincarnation sect. After the hungry ghost realm and the animal realm, the hell realm and the human realm finally surrendered to the heavenly realm. Only the Azura realm, the mortal enemy of the heavenly realm, stubbornly resisted and never surrendered. However, People with discerning eyes could see that the Azura realm had lost its power in the day when the heavenly realm unified the six paths of reincarnation was coming. The result was clear, but the process was so confusing that everyone on the divine land couldn't understand it, no matter how hard they thought about it. The reincarnation sect, which had been fighting for tens of thousands of years, was actually unified so easily. If it was so easy, what had the people of the reincarnation sect been doing? In the process of this battle, Shi Tianfeng and the other cultivators of the heavenly realm didn't show any special trump cards. The only thing that caught people's attention was that the heavenly realm restored many kinds of secret divine powers of the reincarnation sect that were rumored to have been lost. Those with good eyesight could see that this had something to do with the battle of Buddhist extermination under the leadership of sect master Shi Tianfeng. Before Taoist reincarnation founded the reincarnation sect, he traveled around the world and once listened to the teachings of the Great Lane Temple. The reincarnation sect's orthodoxy faintly borrowed some Buddhist dharma. However, Taoist reincarnation was a heavenly talent and had his own way of doing things. His orthodoxy and dharma were completely different from Buddhist dharma. It was very likely that Shi Tianfeng and the others had gained some benefits in the battle of Buddhist extermination. With the help of Buddhist dharma, they had discovered some dharma and divine powers that had been lost because of the deaths of Taoist reincarnation and the seniors of the reincarnation sect. However, this was still not enough to explain why the heavenly realm was so powerful this time. However, the result was that they were unstoppable and victory was in sight, which puzzled most people on the divine land. The Great Zhou dynasty was the most unwilling to see the unification of the reincarnation sect. Although the Great Zhou dynasty was more powerful, there were many unfavorable factors for the Great Zhou dynasty. There was the Qin dynasty in the west and Xianmen Tianzong, who occupied the Fairy Mountain in the Yinghai Sea in the east. The relationship between the Great Zhou dynasty and the Taishu Temple could not be said to be very harmonious. In the battle of Buddhist extermination, they had also become enemies with Shu Mountain. Therefore, after the setback at the Yinghai Sea, the Great Zhou dynasty could only temporarily keep a low profile, recuperate, and wait for another opportunity. As for the reincarnation sect, which was right under their noses, they could only take a vigilant stance. They could not intervene. Lin Feng, on the other hand, returned to peace after he made a name for himself in the Battle of West Hill City. He quietly stayed on Yujing Mountain and quietly observed the situation of the world. However, for Lin Feng, there was still something that he was worried about. It was his two disciples who entered the void battlefield, Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao. Chapter 798. Due to the extremely special spatial conditions and environment of the void battlefield, it was extremely difficult for Lin Feng to go in and find someone to come out. At the same time, even communication methods, such as magical power and sound transmission, were not as effective. Therefore, after Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao entered the void battlefield, there was no news from them. However, almost 2 years after the two entered the void battlefield, there was finally good news. Wang Lin had successfully returned to the vast 1,000 domains from the void battlefield. When Wang Lin returned to the mountain, the first thing he did was to visit Lin Feng. When Lin Feng saw the white-haired, young-looking Wang Lin in front of him, he could not help but smile. Wang Lin, who was in front of him, was also like Xiao Yin and Zhu. He had successfully advanced to the late stage of yuanying and formed his own heaven and earth form. Wang Lin also revealed a faint smile and bowed to Lin Feng. Master, disciple has returned. Lin Feng looked at him and felt that Wang Lin's mental state was rarely excited. After thinking about it, he immediately understood. The late-stage yuanying cultivator who slaughtered the elders of your hometown has fallen into your hands. Wang Lin smiled. That's right. He pointed his finger, and a dim, yellow spirit floated on the tip of his finger. It was an old man with a ferocious and gloomy face. Lin Feng had heard Wang Lin and Yang Qing describe this person's appearance before. He knew that this old man was the person who slaughtered Wang Lin's hometown. Back then, he had only sent his nephew to collect living souls. Who would have thought that his nephew would be killed by an early-stage golden elixir cultivator? Naturally, he was not willing to let it go. Not only did he want to kill Wang Lin, but he also wanted to slaughter his entire family. As a result, the two sides had a great battle, and both sides were involved in the void battlefield. It was a dangerous battle. Wang Lin advanced to the middle-stage golden elixir and fought with the late-stage Yuanian cultivator. He destroyed the old man's heaven and earth form, but Wang Lin was injured even more badly. He was seriously injured and on the verge of death. After 100 years, he rebuilt his body and advanced to the late-stage golden elixir. After his heaven and earth form was destroyed, the late-stage Yuanian cultivator asked a primordial spirit realm emissary of the Underworld Hall to chase after Wang Lin in the void battlefield. In the end, he was captured by Lin Feng. Following that, the situation was completely reversed. Wang Lin blinded one of Shi Tianyi's double pupils and became the first of Lin Feng's direct disciples to form a nascent soul, then from early nascent soul to middle nascent soul. After that, the Underworld Hall suffered heavy losses in front of Xianmen Tianzhou. Even King Qingguang, one of the 10 Yama kings, was suppressed and captured. Wang Lin began to search for the late-stage Yuanian cultivator all over the world. He wanted to avenge his people who died in vain. The old man was also cunning and knew when to yield. After knowing that he was targeted by Wang Lin and Xianmen Tianzhou, he decisively hid and never showed up again. Unfortunately, this time, he was still caught by Wang Lin in the void battlefield. He was found and refined into a netherworld puppet by Wang Lin. This time, I finally avenged my people who died in vain. I also successfully formed the heaven and earth form in the void battlefield. Wang Lin paused and said, I'm going to cultivate for a period of time to prepare for the primordial spirit realm in the future. At the same time, I'm also seriously thinking about the last method of the four symbols realm method. Lin Feng knew the progress of his disciples' Dao, skills, and divine powers like the back of his hand. The divine powers that Wang Lin obtained from comprehending the four symbols heaven-opening scripture were different from those of Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, and Shi Tianhao. Even though Xiao Yin and the other two's divine abilities are all different, on the whole, they are all four symbols parallel technique. Perhaps there's a time to train in them. There is difficulty, there are differences, but the sequence can be decided by oneself. The initial comprehension and creation are all one. After Yu Hongyan began to cultivate the four symbols heaven-opening scripture in the late stage of the golden elixir, he also comprehended new divine powers on his own. Although it was also different from Xiao Yin and the other two, it was also the four symbols parallel method. After Yang Qing successfully passed the trial of Yin Wind, she also began to experience this process. In recent years, she had been in seclusion and had not submitted the results to Lin Feng. It was unknown what it was like. On the other hand, Wang Lin's four symbols realm method refined four demonic gates and formed four worlds. It was a linear process of advancing in an orderly manner. Open the first gate and enter the first world, then open the second gate and enter the second world, and so on. Before cultivating the heaven and earth form, Wang Lin, who was in the middle stage of Yuanying, successfully refined the second world after the first world, the life and death world. Now that he had cultivated the heaven and earth form, he had cultivated the third world in the late stage of Yuanying. However, the last world had not been settled yet. Lin Feng directly pointed out, if you want to comprehend the last technique of the four symbols realm method, you might as well go to Xintian realm to look for Zen Master Dade. You will gain a lot. Wang Lin nodded repeatedly. Disciple has the same intention. After greeting Master, I will prepare to go to Xintian realm to ask Zen Master Dade. He was a swift and decisive person. After bidding farewell to Lin Feng, he immediately returned to his cave abode, mortal forest residence. After seeing the disciples in the sect and testing their cultivation, he went down the mountain and headed to the heaven mystic realm. Little Lin is back safely. It's a pity that there is still no news from Tianhao. Lin Feng watched Wang Lin leave, then turned his attention to Yang Qing's cave residence, Nirvana Cave. A few days later, Yang Qing finally came out of seclusion. However, he looked a little dazed. He came to Lin Feng and reported the results of his cultivation. After seeing it, Lin Feng's expression was very relaxed. He smiled slightly. There is no need to be discouraged. You have cultivated the 4 symbols heaven opening scripture. The idea is very good, but it is lacking some polishing. This is not something that can be achieved by sitting on a mountain. Go down the mountain and gain experience. Only then will you be able to obtain it. Yang Qing nodded seriously. Disciple will work hard. However, before leaving the mountain, Disciple wants to see Gu Yunsong overcome his difficulties. Yunsong's accumulation is enough. If he goes to challenge the checkpoint now, he has at least a 90% chance of success. Lin Feng smiled and said, when to leave you decide. There is no harm in taking Yunsong with you. He also lacks training. Yang Qing smiled and said, Disciple thinks so too. Because Zhou Yunsong was born with the burning yang physique, although he was fierce in fights and his cultivation speed was fast, there were many dangers in the process of cultivation. The biggest danger in the early stage of cultivation was forming the core. Once a cultivator with the burning yang physique formed his core, he would immediately attract the Yin fire tribulation, which could not be suppressed. Under such circumstances, if he could overcome the Yin fire tribulation in one go, he would directly reach the middle stage of the golden elixir, which was a heaven-reaching cultivation. However, if he could not overcome it, he would be burned by the Yin fire and turn into ashes. For this reason, after Zhou Yunsong successfully condensed the Dan Cauldron, he stayed in the late stage of the foundation establishment realm for a long time. He cultivated according to Yang Qing's guidance and painstakingly accumulated strength, striving to overcome the Yin fire tribulation in one go after forming his core. However, after passing the Yin fire tribulation and advancing to the middle stage of the golden elixir, it did not mean that there was no more danger. The cultivation of a cultivator with a burning yang physique was still like walking on thin ice. One wrong step and the result would be eternal damnation. Under Yang Qing's supervision and Lin Feng's attention, Zhou Yunsong passed this stage without any danger. When he communicated with heaven and earth and turned his body into a sea of fire shrouded in thick black smoke, Yang Qing finally breathed a sigh of relief, and a smile appeared on her face. Zhou Yunsong retracted his magic power and remained silent, but he kowtowed to Yang Qing. Seeing this scene, Yang Qing couldn't help but think of herself and her master Lin Feng. She raised her hand and helped Zhou Yunsong up, feeling a lot of emotions in her heart. When everything was ready, Yang Qing prepared to bring Zhou Yunsong out to travel. After receiving the news, Yu Hongyan brought Zhao Huan to the Nirvana Paradise. Fifth junior brother, where are you going to travel? Yu Hongyan asked. Yang Qing thought for a moment before replying. I'm going to go to the southern wasteland. There are many realm passageways that connect to the infinite wasteland. The situation is dangerous and the environment is complicated. My travel this time is to sharpen my mind and perfect my skills. That place is very suitable. Yu Hongyan said, I'm going to bring Xiao Huan to the south of the great swamp of the ancient domain. The death anniversary of our comrades who died in the Society of the Stronggale is coming soon. The cemetery is already at the edge of the southern wasteland. Speaking of which, we're going the same way. We can go together. Yang Qing had no objections and immediately agreed. As soon as Yu Hongyan left the Nirvana Paradise, he saw a white-clothed youth at the top of Yujing Mountain looking down the mountain in a daze. Mr. Kong? Yu Hongyan was a little surprised. You've come out of seclusion? The white-clothed youth turned around. It was Kong Nanhua. He saw Yu Hongyan and smiled faintly. Hongyan, you've also formed your nascent soul. Congratulations. Kong Nanhua's gaze fell on Zhao Huan. The smile on his face became even wider. Xiao Huan has also formed a pill cauldron. Congratulations, Mr. Kong, on coming out of seclusion. Zhao Huan was also overjoyed. Yu Hongyan carefully sized up Kong Nanhua. Mr. Kong, you formed the Dharma of heaven and earth and advanced to the late stage of Yuanying? Kong Nanhua shook his head and said with a smile, I can't compare with you guys. I heard that Xiao Yin and the others are also in the late stage of Yuanying. Yu Hong Yin said, eldest senior brother and the others are all peerless talents. It's expected that they would have this kind of advancement. However, it's all because I'm under Master's tutelage. Otherwise, it would be impossible for me to form my nascent soul so quickly. If we were to practice the same Tao techniques, I'm definitely not as good as Mr. Kong. Kong Nanhua shook his head. Let's not talk about this. Are you guys preparing to go out? Yu Hongyin briefly explained the whole story. Kong Nanhua sighed. Speaking of which, I've been in seclusion for these years, and it's been a long time since I've gone to worship and sweep the tombs. If you guys don't mind, I'd like to go with you. At this time, Yang Qing and Zhou Yunsong also came out of the cave. After greeting Kong Nanhua, they said, since we're going the same way, Mr. Kong can accompany us. Count me in too. At this time, a voice came from the void, and the next moment, a young man dressed in purple with long white hair fluttering behind him stepped out of the space gap and landed on the top of Jade Capital Mountain. It was Wang Lin, who had previously gone to the mysterious heaven realm to look for Zen Master Dade. Yang Qing, Yu Hongyin, and Kong Nanhua all looked at Wang Lin with some surprise. Facing them, Wang Lin was not indifferent at all. He smiled faintly and said, I received guidance from Zen Master Dade to go to the southern wasteland to find a treasure, which is useful for my cultivation. On the branch of the mysterious heaven treasure tree, Lin Feng silently watched them leave the mountain and couldn't help but shrug his shoulders. This team is actually so big. It's a bit beyond my expectation, but it doesn't matter. There must be some safety measures. Although little Lin will avoid most of the danger by going with us, it can also make me feel completely relieved. His eyes flickered slightly, and his attention shifted to the doppelganger of Brontosaurus in the hall of Mount Penglai in the Yangtze. There, his demon body's cultivation had reached a critical moment. Chapter 799. After experiencing the illusory sea bewilderment tide that affected the entire foreign space, the Ying Ocean had already regained its peace. From time to time, there would still be humans or demons entering the Ying Ocean through the realm passage on the east sea of the Divine Land in an attempt to try their luck and obtain some precious treasures and resources that were rare in the outside world. Naturally, they had to face the layers of illusions in the Ying Ocean. There were many people who got lost in it, but many still flocked to it. However, unlike how the Great Zhou dynasty secretly obtained Mount Fangzhong in the past, Xianmin Tianzong obtained Mount Yingzhou, and it was already known to the world. There were naturally people who were scheming in the dark, but they could only suppress their thoughts as they were wary of Xianmin Tianzong's strength. Instead, they tried to seek cooperation and trade with Xianmin Tianzong. Lin Feng and Xianmin Tianzong occupied Mount Yingzhou. Not only could they excavate the resources on Mount Yingzhou, but they could also ignore the many illusions in the Ying Ocean and search for treasures in the Ying Ocean. It would definitely be much easier for them than others. It was also after obtaining the Immortal Mountain that Lin Feng roughly estimated how much land the Great Zhou dynasty had secretly obtained in the Ying Ocean with the help of Mount Fangzhong. After accumulating for a long time, be it in quantity or quality, it could not be underestimated. However, others only knew that Lin Feng obtained Mount Yingzhou, but they did not know that even Mount Penglai had fallen into his hands. Surrounded by layers of illusions in the Ying Ocean, Lin Feng's Brontosaurus clone was sitting in the main hall on Mount Penglai, cultivating silently. The Brontosaurus clone revealed his true form and turned into a purple-scaled dragon that was more than 1,000 meters long. Lightning flashed all over his body. Even though he revealed his true form, Lin Feng's clone was moving around in the hall. The hall did not seem small. The space expanded out in layers, as if there was no end. The innate mystique of the Brontosaurus was the godly thunder of the 8 desolations. At the same cultivation level, It was comparable to the Tai Huang's chaotic immortal slaying thunder and the Thunder Emperor's nine heavens godly thunder, Dao Mystique. Opposite Lin Feng's Brontosaurus clone was a Grand Luo who had temporarily assumed his demon form through the golden scorpion orb. At the moment, rays of light were flowing on the surface of the Grand Luo's body, converging into a purple radiance that resembled mist, causing his body to rise and fall amidst the radiance. Countless mysterious, ancient, and indecipherable characters floated in the light. Every single character seemed to contain a profound truth. When the thousands of characters were combined, they resonated with the great Tao of heaven and earth. Thanks to Lin Feng's guidance and Grand Luo's own careful analysis, he was able to maintain his body's transformation with the Mirage Gold Pearl for a longer period of time. Lin Feng could vaguely sense that as the Grand Luo cultivated, the celestial scarlet golden orb seemed to grow stronger by the day. Both Lin Feng and the Grand Luo suddenly paused. The Grand Luo appeared surprised. Master Lin, the celestial scarlet golden orb seems to be acting strangely. Lin Feng nodded. Let's temporarily dispel the celestial scarlet golden orb's transformation and return it to its original state. Yes, Master Lin. The Grand Luo immediately closed his eyes. His body shuddered, and a large amount of mist rose from his body. His body gradually turned into a cloud of golden mist, and there was a faint purple glow circulating within the golden mist. In the next moment, the golden mist that flickered with purple radiance retracted towards its center, revealing a huge orb. Then, the golden mist was retracted into the orb. Lin Feng and the Grand Luo spirit that was residing within the orb silently sensed the celestial scarlet golden orb's transformation. A single image appeared in their minds at the same time. Amidst a sea of white clouds, streaks of radiance shot out from the sea of clouds. They were dazzling and dazzling, intersecting with one another across the horizon. The streaks of radiance seemed to form the great Tao laws of the heaven primordial world. As they were projected down, anyone who saw them would be shocked. However, Lin Feng could vaguely sense that he had yet to enter the room. In fact, he had yet to even touch or see the door. The true mysteries were hidden beneath the sea of white clouds. As Lin Feng looked closely, his pupils suddenly contracted. This was because he seemed to have vaguely seen a cave abode and a door deep within the sea of clouds. This scene was vaguely familiar to Lin Feng. His mind raced as he searched through the depths of his memories. Finally, he recalled that it was when he had first met Kong Nanhua and Yu Hongyin in the great marsh of the ancient region a little more than a year after arriving in the great heaven primordial world. At that time, he had yet to establish his foundation. He was just a Qi refinement cultivator. When he had first met Kong Nanhua, he had used Long Ye's stone flute to treat her old injuries. At that time, the stone flute had projected an illusion of light and shadow. The scene in the illusion was completely different from what he was seeing now. However, there was one similarity, and that was the image of a cave abode and a door that had appeared in Lin Feng's mind. At that time, Lin Feng had thought that it was the cave abode of some powerful expert. However, from the looks of it now, it was far from that simple. This place is actually related to the Yuan Heavenly Sea. Lin Feng was a little surprised. Otherwise, the celestial scarlet golden orb wouldn't have formed a connection with it. Interesting. Just what kind of place is that? The Taishu Temple is interested in it, and it's also related to the demonic race. Lin Feng pondered and quickly thought of another problem. The celestial scarlet golden orb has never had such a change before. I also didn't bring the stone flute and stone stairs from the Taishu Temple into contact with the celestial scarlet golden orb. In that case, the only possibility is that the glowing white sea of clouds itself has undergone a special change. It stimulated the connection between it and the celestial scarlet golden orb, and that's why the celestial scarlet golden orb suddenly reacted. Lin Feng closed his eyes. Let's assume that the glowing sea of clouds and the door are just like Mount Punglai. They're only related to the people of the Yu Huang Heavenly Sea and have nothing to do with the Yudu race. At the same time, the connection between it and the Yu Huang Heavenly Sea also exists in the celestial scarlet golden orb. It has nothing to do with the other treasures left behind in the Yu Huang Heavenly Sea. In that case, the most likely reason for the change in the glowing sea of clouds is the Taishu Temple. This was purely an assumption and conjecture. There was no other evidence, but Lin Feng's intuition felt that his conjecture was correct. With his current magic power and divine arts, most of the time, his sudden inspiration wasn't just a conjecture. Instead, it was secretly in agreement with the laws of heaven and earth. The so-called sudden inspiration was more of a change in the great Tao of heaven and earth, which affected him. That was why he had a related intuition. Even if it wasn't completely accurate, there was most likely a connection. It wasn't groundless. Letting out a long breath, Lin Feng opened his eyes again. His gaze became deep and serene. At the same time, on White Cloud Mountain, the current number 1 sacred ground of cultivation in the Divine Land, the mountain gate of the Taishu Temple was still shrouded in white clouds, concealing the mountains and making it difficult for others to spy on them. The ordinary disciples of the Taishu Temple were still doing as usual. However, on the peak of the mountain, there was a row of simple bamboo houses that formed a circle. In the middle, there was an empty space. At this moment, there were a few people standing in a circle on the empty space. Silently, they looked at the ground in the middle of the crowd, which was projecting a gentle ray of light into the sky above. These few people looked very peaceful. The aura around them was not obvious at all. It was like a group of ordinary people in the secular world. The ray of light that was projected into the sky was not dazzling. It was gentle, ethereal, and even a little illusory. If one were to look closely, they might not even notice it. However, if anyone else saw these people, they would be shocked. One of the green-robed young men who stood at the outermost edge was the current Taoism world wayfarer of the Taishu Temple. He was the most outstanding disciple of his generation, Lin Daohan. In front of him stood a young man who did not look much older than him. He had a head of long black hair, but his temples were as white as snow. He was Lin Daohan's teacher, the current temple master of the Taishu Temple, Yin Nanlai. Beside Yin Nanlai stood a woman in white. She had a smile on her face and beautiful facial features. She looked like an adult woman, but at the same time, she looked like a little girl who had not grown up yet. He was a member of the supreme elders of the Taishu Temple, the teacher of Yin Mingyue, Yin Yuanjin. Beside Yin Nanlai and Yin Yuanjin were 2 middle-aged women, a man and a woman. The man had a gentle smile on his face, while the woman looked cold and murderous. He was a member of the supreme elders of the Taishu Temple, Kai Fengzhou. He was a member of the supreme elders of the Taishu Temple, Lord Yuan. Opposite Yin Nanlai and the other 3, there were 2 other people. One of them was an old man in white with snow-white hair. He was the previous generation elder of the Taishu Temple, Shoichi Dashin, who had rescued Quang Hung, Xianlin Taoist, and the others in the Battle of West Hill City. There was a girl standing next to the righteous first sect master. She looked calm but cold. She looked even younger than Yin Yuanjin and Yu Yuan, but the 2 of them respected her very much when they talked to her. He was of the same generation as Shoichi Dashin, the previous generation elder of the Taishu Temple, Yin Yuanjin's teacher, and Yin Mingyue's teacher, Lord Qingyi. Beside Lord Qing, stood a middle-aged man. His eyes were filled with incomparable emotions, as if he could see all the emotions of the world. He was Xianlin Taoist. At this moment, he stretched out his right hand, and there were mysterious runes flashing on his palm. Yin Yuanjin looked at Xianlin Taoist and smiled. Senior brother Xianlin is indeed the person who has the deepest understanding of the mysteries of the heavenly realm other than Uncle Tai. Xianlin Taoist nodded and did not say anything. Opposite him stood a kind-looking old man. However, his eyes were closed, as if he could not see. But in the entire great Tianyuan world, no one dared to look down on him. This was because he was the previous temple master of the Taishu Temple, Yin Nanlai's teacher, and the strongest person in the entire Taishu Temple, Lord Tai. Lord Tai also stretched out his right hand. There were also mysterious runes constantly changing on his palm, faintly corresponding to Xianlin Taoists. If people who knew the ins and outs of the Taishu Temple were to see this scene, they would definitely be dumbfounded, because these people covered more than half of the Void Temple's decision-makers. Apart from a few people who had important matters to attend to and were unable to make it, all the other top experts of the Void Temple that could make it were present. At this moment, these people were centered around Lord Tai and Xianlin Taoist, Yin Nan Lai, Shoichi Dashin, Lord Qing Yi, Yin Yuanjin, and the others faintly flashed with light. They gathered together and turned into a seemingly inconspicuous beam of light that shot into the sky. Chapter 800. Many experts of the Taishu Temple gathered together. Their mana was profound and condensed into a faint beam of light that went straight to the sky. This beam of light was not eye-catching, but it pierced through the void. In the layers of void, a huge and illusory ball of light appeared. In the ball of light, 9 layers of illusion could be vaguely seen. Each layer was higher than the one before. Sweet celestial music lingered, as if the celestials of the heavens were chanting the law of the great path together. At the bottom layer, the center of the sea of clouds emitted infinite light. Slowly, a door of the divine kingdom was opening. This door exuded a mysterious and wonderful feeling, as if it was the starting point, the entrance, the beginning of all the laws in the world. Once one entered this door, the road to cultivation would be smooth. Counting from the bottom to the top, the second layer was a dark void, dotted with stars. There were countless hazy haze, and a large amount of starlight gathered, illuminating the world, faintly merging with the sea of stars in the sky. In the third layer, there was nothing else, only a huge crack in the void. However, the crack was not the darkness that ordinary cultivators broke through the void. Instead, dazzling white light burst out from the crack. The crack of white light twisted and pulsed, sucking in the surrounding things. The two sides of the crack pressed together toward the center. This was the result of the joint action of the two worlds, as if it was going to tear the world apart. The fourth layer was a vast and boundless universe. It was vast and boundless, but the world seemed like it could be overturned at any moment. Like a giant hand, it opened its palm and shrouded over the heads of all living beings. In the fifth layer, in the middle of the clouds, the sky was filled with golden lightning, twisting and jumping. Countless thick lightning dragons were rising and falling in the clouds. However, they were not the manifestation of ordinary lightning essence chi. Instead, they seemed to be living beings with intelligence. In the sixth layer, between the white clouds, golden light flashed. The four walls formed a huge city, like a celestial city in the heavens, looking down on the world. In the golden city, there was a grand artistic conception that no matter how the world changed, I will not be moved. Above the city, in the seventh layer, there were 6 colorful halos that had not formed a circle. Each of the halos did not seem big, but if one looked carefully, one would find that there was a universe within, like a real and independent world, and each world had its own advantages. The 6 worlds formed a circle, lifting up the 8th layer together. White clouds curled around the 8th layer, and golden light flickered. There seemed to be innumerable figures among the white clouds and golden light, singing together. The pleasant celestial music coming from the ball of light originated from the 8th floor. It was like a holy celestial realm, a supreme celestial kingdom that made people yearn for it. The 9th floor was also the highest floor, but there was nothing tangible to be seen. There was only a faint radiance. It was not resplendent, not dazzling, not grand, not shocking. However, apart from this radiance, there was nothing else. That radiance was indescribable, boundless, and difficult to see through. This was the Taishu Temple's most mysterious Taishu 9 layers of Heaven Imperial Court. Every layer of the Taishu Imperial Court was actually an independent and mysterious alternate space. Since ancient times, countless legends have been created, causing the people of the world to revere and gasp in admiration. But at this moment, above the glorious ninth level of the Heaven Imperial Court, it actually continued to extend upwards. It was just that its appearance was faintly discernible, causing one to be unable to clearly see its appearance. They could only vaguely sense that there was indeed another level of the Heaven Imperial Court there. Even in the Taishu Temple, there were very few people who knew about the 10th Heaven Imperial Court. The ancient people of the Divine Land had passed down the definitions of the 9 heavens. Other than the definitions of the ancient Heavenly Gate, the Center Great Heaven, the East Heaven, the Northeast Min Heaven, the North Black Heaven, the Northwest Nether Heaven, the West By Heaven, the Southwest Vermilion Heaven, the South Flame Heaven, and the Southeast Yang Heaven, there was another definition, which was the definition of the Taishu Temple. Of the 9 heavens, the first was the Middle Heaven, the second was the Enbi Heaven, the third was the Tsung Heaven, the fourth was the Gung Heaven, the fifth was the Bai Heaven, the sixth was the Open Heaven, the seventh was the Salt Heaven, the eighth was the Shun Heaven, and the ninth was the Chung Heaven. 9 was the extreme of numbers, and it also had the meaning of infinity. Above the Chung Heaven was the Great Tao. The Great Tao was in the sky, endless and mysterious. And in the inheritance of the Taishu Temple, above the 9 heavens Imperial Court, the 10th Heaven Imperial Court, was where the Great Tao was. The 10th Heaven Imperial Court, above the Heavenly Realm. It was rumored that the founder of the Taishu Temple, the Taishu Taoist, had verified the Great Tao from the above Heavenly Realm. In the end, he had single-handedly established the foundation of the Taishu Temple. The above Heavenly Realm had also become the supreme, sacred ground of the Taishu Temple. In the long years to come, it had been passed down from generation to generation, and it had created countless strong practitioners of the Taishu Temple. However, 10,000 years ago, the above Heavenly Realm had been sealed, and no one could find the door to enter. After that, numerous strong practitioners of the Taishu Temple had been working hard to reopen the above Heavenly Realm. They had made numerous attempts and efforts, and they had also thought of numerous methods. The stone flute and the stone stairs that had landed in Lin Feng's hands were the products of these studies. And now, under the combined efforts of everyone in the Taishu Temple, they had finally reopened the 10th Heaven Imperial Court that had been sealed for 10,000 years. Previously, news came from Tao Venerable Luofu of the East Sea. The Yudu race has appeared once again, and the opportunity to reopen the above Heavenly Realm is indeed ripe. Tao Venerable Supreme Unity closed his eyes and raised his head, as though he was looking at the light and shadow in the void. Everyone present was silent. 10,000 years ago, it was because of Yu Huang Tianhai that the above Heavenly Realm had been sealed. And Tao Venerable Supreme Unity had also been injured by her in the war between the two worlds. Tao Venerable Supreme Unity had long refined his corporeal body into his primordial spirit, shedding his mortal body. Ordinary injuries wouldn't cause him to become blind on the outside. However, in the battle back then, although Tao Venerable Supreme Unity had used the Haotian mirror to suppress and kill Yuang Tianhai, the foundation of his great Tao had been injured by Tianhai. As a result, on the outside, he had become blind. Kai Fengzhou, who had the appearance of a middle-aged man, said, "Such a huge change has happened to the above Heavenly Realm. Although it has been reopened, it will be different from 10,000 years ago if we want to enter it. It's fine to lose the stone flute, but without the stone stairs, we'll have to spend a lot of effort to enter the above Heavenly Realm." Slowly, Yin Nanlai said, "Originally, the stone stairs could only allow one person to enter the above Heavenly Realm. Now that we're using other methods, although the price is much higher, we can allow more people to enter at the same time. The key to entering the above Heavenly Realm this time is to eliminate the changes caused by Tianhai's Yudu, so that the above Heavenly Realm can return to the state it was 10,000 years ago." He turned to look at Tao Venerable Supreme Unity, Shoichi Dashin, and Tao Venerable Qingyi. Senior Uncle Shwani has just passed through the heavenly decay, 5 tribulations, and is currently recuperating. It's important to repair the above heavenly realm, but we have to prevent any changes in the vast thousand worlds as well. This time, at least one of you must stay behind to oversee White Cloud Mountain with this disciple. Tao Venerable Supreme Unity looked at Tao Venerable Chingy. Junior Sister Chingy, I'll have to trouble you to oversee White Cloud Mountain. Junior Brother Chingy will follow me to the above heavenly realm. If they really wanted to reform the above heavenly realm, Tao Venerable Supreme Unity would definitely have to enter. Between Shoichi Dashin and Tao Venerable Chingy, one of them had to enter and cooperate with Tao Venerable Supreme Unity. After listening to Tao Venerable Supreme Unity's arrangements, Shoichi Dashin's expression was as calm as before as he nodded. Tao Venerable Chingy, who looked to be only 13 or 14 years old and had the appearance of a young girl, raised her head to meet Tao Venerable Supreme Unity's gaze. She saw that he was smiling gently. Although his eyes were closed, it was as if his wise gaze could directly see through her heart. Tao Venerable Chingy nodded lightly. Senior brother, don't worry. Tao Venerable Supreme Unity then turned his head to look at Xianlin Taoist and the others. Xianlin, Yin, Fengzhou, Yuanjin, follow me and Junior Brother Jingyi to the above heavenly realm. Dao Han, come along as well. Xianlin Taoist, Tao Venerable Yuan, Kai Fengzhou, and Yin Yuanjin said in unison, Yes, Senior Uncle. Lin Daohan also solemnly bowed. Yes, Grandmaster. Tao Venerable Supreme Unity nodded. Junior Brother Jingyi, Junior Nephew Xianlin, let's officially begin. After saying that, he raised his hand in the air. Streams of light suddenly appeared and turned into a huge ball of light in the sky. It was actually divided into 9 layers. It looked somewhat similar to the 9 Heavens Imperial Court, but it was much more illusory. Shoichi Dashin raised his palm up. The vast white clouds continued to condense and turned into a towering mountain, merging into one with the 9 Heavens Imperial Court's ball of light released by Tao Venerable Supreme Unity. Xianlin Taoist's hands changed hand seals. He himself floated into the air and flew toward the sky. In midair, his primordial spirit swayed and changed its appearance. However, it did not reveal its conjured body. Instead, it turned into light and actually turned into a stone staircase. Tao Venerable Supreme Unity and Shoichi Dashin's magic power were all added to the stone staircase. The stone staircase landed at the top of the 9 Heavens Imperial Court and combined with the indescribable and indescribable radiance in the 9th layer of the Imperial Court. Together, they turned into a bridge of light that extended toward the seemingly invisible 10th layer of the Imperial Court. Yin Nam Lai, Tao Venerable Qing Yi, Yin Yuanjin, Tao Venerable Yuan, and Kai Fengzhou each took out a talisman. Each talisman turned into layers of radiance. The radiance was not bright or dazzling, but it seemed to contain everything in the world and all things in creation. It actually looked similar to the supreme divine light emitted by the 9th layer of the Imperial Court. With the support of these 5 balls of radiance, the bridge of light formed by Xianlin Taoist extended even further, as if it was a true path to heaven. At this moment, the celestial music that filled the sky gradually quieted down. The clouds also continuously dispersed, and the void gradually became empty. The horizon fell into a profound state of silence and formlessness. At this moment, the 9 Heavens Imperial Court seemed to truly connect with the great Tao of heaven and earth, overlooking the universe. Tao Venerable Supreme Unity pointed with his finger, and a jade pendant flew out. It turned into a formless, flowing light in the sky and integrated into the bridge of light formed by Xianlin Taoist. The surface of the bridge of light swayed like water ripples. The radiance dissipated, and the entire bridge also lost its shape and luster, as if it had disappeared from the world. However, as the bridge of light also integrated into the concept of nothingness, at the end of the bridge of light, in the depths of the void, a light shadow that resembled a cave dwelling in a door gradually appeared. Tao Venerable Supreme Unity smiled calmly and said, "Let's go." He immediately walked up the Nine Heavens Imperial Court. There was still no aura circulating around his body, nor was there any shocking power. He was like an ordinary blind old man. However, Tao Venerable Supreme Unity crossed a layer of the Imperial Court and walked through a foreign space with a single step. After taking 9 steps, he had already landed on the indescribable yet sacred and lofty radiance of the 9th layer of the Imperial Court. After taking the 10th step, he stepped onto the formless bridge of light and advanced towards the door in the void. The others did not exchange any unnecessary greetings. Under the lead of Shoichi Dashin, they followed behind Tao Venerable Supreme Unity and walked up the 9 Heavens Imperial Court. In an instant, only Yin Namlai and Tao Venerable Qing Yi were left at the peak of White Cloud Mountain. They looked at Tao Venerable Supreme Unity and the others who were passing through the layers of the Imperial Court in the void. Yin Namlai said, "The master of the celestial sect of wonders should have also sensed it, right?" Chapter 801. Although I'm not sure where the Yuta beast is now, according to the disciples of Tao Venerable Luo Fu, this demon had contact with the clone of the master of Xian Gate before. Slowly, Yin Nanlai said, "With the knowledge and sharpness of the master of Xian Gate, he probably wasn't fooled." Tao Venerable Qing Yi said indifferently, "We successfully reopened the above heaven realm, which also opened the door for him. With the stone flute and stone stairs in his hands, he might enter the above heaven realm as well." Yin Nanlai said, "Whoever started the trouble should untie it. Back then, Yudu of the heavenly seas caused the above heaven realm to be sealed, but we still don't know the reason. If we want to restore the realm to its state 10,000 years ago, we might have to use the Yudu bloodline." After the war between the two worlds, the entire Yudu race mysteriously went into hiding, and there's still no news of them. No matter if it's us or the tens of thousands of demons in infinite wasteland vast land, we didn't find much after searching for thousands of years. Now, there's only one Yudu beast in the world. Also, Disciple has a feeling that the Yudu beast isn't ordinary. It probably has a deep connection with Yudu of the heavenly seas. He sighed. The above heaven realm is mysterious, and even our Taishu temple has limited knowledge about it. The seal caused by the abnormalities back then might have involved many things we don't know. If not, Taishu temple wouldn't have mobilized so many people to reopen the above heaven realm. One reason was because the situation was unclear, and the other was to prevent the Yudu race, which had disappeared for 4,000 years, from reappearing. They might trigger the above heaven realm like Yuang, heavenly seas back then. Disciple hopes that the master of Xian Gate will sense the reopening of the above heaven realm and bring the Yudu beast in. Tao Venerable Qing Yi said. Tao Master Qing Yi said, "The stone flute and the stone stairs are in his hands. It's up to him to decide what to do." But this time, Senior Brother Tai, Senior Brother Jingyi, and Yuanjin entered the above heaven realm together. It's still unknown when they'll return. The temple is weak, so we need to guard against the strange movements of the demons in infinite wasteland vast land. After a slight pause, Tao Venerable Qing Yi continued. At the same time, the undercurrents in the divine land are turbulent, and they can erupt at any time. We have to guard against them. Yin Namlai nodded. Marshal Uncle Qing Yi is right. He spread open his left and right palms, and there were runes of light surging on his palms. In the next instant, there was a flash of light, and 2 people landed in front of Yin Namlai and Tao Master Qing Yi. Of the 2 old men, one had white hair and a ruddy complexion. He was tall, and although his face was old, he appeared mighty and powerful. The other body seemed to be transparent, giving off a chaotic and unknown color. There were only 2 strands of hair hanging down from his temples, one black and one white, like the polar opposites of yin and yang. This was the primordial spirit of the two most powerful Mahayana grade treasures of the Taishu Temple, the grand formation-breaking drum and the void yin-yang bell. Both treasures were at the peak of the Mahayana grade, and their magic power was equivalent to a cultivator at the peak of the Tao integration realm. Their seniority was also very high. Tao Venerable Qing Yi nodded slightly in greeting. Grand Drum Immortal and Yin Yang Wang bowed to Yin Nan Lai and Tao Venerable Qing Yi together. Yin Nan Lai said, Senior Marshal Brother Kuang has finally taken the last step. Although he succeeded, he is now plagued by the heavenly decay, tribulation, and needs to rest. Marshal Uncle Xian Yi also experienced the heavenly decay, tribulation not long ago and has yet to recover. Junior Marshal Brother Fu and the others are in charge of other important places and can't leave. After Master, Marshal Uncle Zhengyi, Junior Marshal Brother Xianlin, Junior Marshal Sister Yuan, Junior Marshal Brother Kai, and Junior Marshal Sister Yin entered the heavenly realm. The temple is relatively empty now. We'll have to trouble you two from now on. Grand Drum Immortal shook his head slightly. No need to be so polite, Temple Master. Slowly, Yin Yang Wang said, Tai Ching entered the heavenly realm with Yu Engine, and the sun and moon can't move easily. Since the temple is empty now, why don't Temple Master summon the confinement back? Yin Nanlai nodded. I have the same intention, but I'll have to ask Marshal Uncle Xiani first. After Grand Drum Immortal and Yin Yang Wang left, Yin Nanlai and Tao Venerable Qing Yi sat together in the empty space between the bamboo houses on the mountaintop. They looked at the nine heavens imperial court that had become ethereal in the sky, as well as the heavenly realm that was high above the nine heavens. After a long time, Tao Venerable Qing Yi sighed softly. I wonder what the heavenly realm is like now. Yin Nanlai didn't say anything, but he couldn't help but recall his experience when he entered the heavenly realm. He didn't expect that more than 10,000 years had passed. As time passed slowly, Yin Nanlai and Tao Venerable Qing Yi's eyes suddenly flickered slightly. The two looked at each other. Someone else has come into contact with the heavenly realm. This feeling, is it the master of the celestial gate? At this moment, Lin Feng's main body had left Mount Yujing, passed through layers of void, and arrived at Mount Penglai in the Yangtze. His Brontosaurus clone was holding the heavenly scarlet golden bead. After Lin Feng's main body personally arrived, he handed the heavenly scarlet golden bead to his main body. Lin Feng used his divine sense to analyze the heavenly scarlet golden bead while taking out the stone flute and the stone stairs. After thinking for a while, Lin Feng used his magic power to refine the stone flute. The stone flute immediately emitted a white misty light, which turned into an illusion of light and shadow. It was projected into the void of the palace on Mount Penglai. In the light and shadow, towering mountains were surrounded by white clouds. Sunlight shone down, transforming into a long staircase at the top of the mountain. The staircase, formed by sunlight, reached all the way to the nine heavens. In the void of the sky, there was a vague existence that looked like a cave abode and a door. It was faintly discernible, as if it was hidden in the endless, overlapping space. At this moment, Lin Feng also took out the heavenly scarlet golden bead and the stone stairs. Streams of magic power turned into flowing light seals, which continuously entered the golden bead and the stone stairs. The heavenly scarlet golden bead shone brightly, fusing with the illusion of light and shadow projected by the stone flute. In the next moment, the scene that had appeared in the minds of Lin Feng and Origin Immortal gradually solidified in the illusion of light and shadow. In a vast white sea of clouds, countless dazzling lights shot into the sky, intertwining with each other. In the depths of the sea of clouds, the existence that looked like a cave abode and a door was faintly discernible. Though Taishu Temple was a step ahead of me, it also helped me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to enter the door, even if I had the stone flute and the stone stairs. Lin Feng thought, but the path I found through the heavenly scarlet golden bead is probably not the same as Taishu Temple's. I wonder if I'll have a chance to meet it inside the door? With this thought, Lin Feng took out the stone stairs. As it flew into the void, it also gave off a faint light that stretched across the sea of clouds, leading to the entrance of the door deep in the sea of clouds. As the stairs extended, the light gradually faded. Even the stone stairs themselves seemed to turn transparent, formless, and without a trace. However, Lin Feng could clearly sense that a profound path was connecting him to the sectarian view deep in the sea of clouds. This staircase can only allow one person to step on it. Lin Feng scanned it with his spiritual sense and could not help but frown. Forget it. I'll have to enter alone this time. I wonder if I can use my Yuan spirit to wrap around Yujing Mountain and bring it along? With a thought, Lin Feng stepped onto the invisible staircase. Then, he attempted to communicate with Yujing Mountain to descend, but he immediately felt a repulsion from the staircase beneath his feet. Can I use a trick? Lin Feng shrugged, not minding it too much. He continued up the staircase into the depths of the sea of clouds. He did not have many plans this time. His main goal was to investigate. After all, he did not know what kind of existence was behind the door deep in the sea of clouds. Everything was unknown, making it difficult for him to make an effective judgment and evaluation. Naturally, he could not formulate a corresponding plan. Therefore, Lin Feng's goal in entering this time was very simple. He was to explore the path and gather information. It would be a pleasant surprise if he could gain anything, but he did not mind if he did not. Walking on the staircase, he wandered in the sea of clouds and carefully comprehended the light that rose and fell in the sea of clouds. The projections of the Great Path laws appeared on Lin Feng's spiritual platform, leaving him with endless aftertastes. However, without actual contact, it was like scratching an itch through one's boot. Lin Feng stared at the door at the end of the staircase. He vaguely felt that the Great Path laws seemed to truly exist on the other side of the door. This feeling made Lin Feng feel incredulous, but his intuition told him that his guess was correct. Lin Feng passed through the invisible staircase and finally arrived in front of the door. The door looked very ordinary, as if it was a tangible door condensed from the invisible void. Other than that, there was nothing special about it, but it gave off a feeling of returning to its original state. There was no sound in the void where the door was. Even Lin Feng could not help but fall silent and not make a sound. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly, and he immediately reacted. He was actually affected by this region, and there was a faint trend of being assimilated by this door, merging into the mysterious concept of the great sound, the elephant invisible. Lin Feng smiled. It is indeed not simple. He made a gesture of pushing the door, and the invisible void, like a real door, opened to both sides. The scene inside the door was empty, and nothing could be seen. However, Lin Feng did not feel disappointed, because he could clearly feel the resonance of the great path of heaven and earth. He could not hear any sound, but in Lin Feng's consciousness, there seemed to be countless concepts flashing through his mind, silently telling himself. Lin Feng was about to step into the door, and, at this moment, there was a sudden change. The heaven-punishing sword buzzed, and it actually retreated from Lin Feng's primordial spirit. Lin Feng was slightly startled. He had finally convinced Xian Li to return to the heaven-punishing sword box, and then put the sword box into his primordial spirit, but at this moment, it had actually separated from his primordial spirit. Is this region rejecting the heaven-punishing sword? Lin Feng's mind turned, and he already understood. This gathering of the great path of heaven and earth was like the most mysterious place in the boundless thousand world, as if it had its own consciousness, and also as if the great path of heaven and earth was operating on its own, actively rejecting the world-destroying sword, the heaven-punishing sword. The sword will of the heaven-punishing sword was different from the Shushan sword Dao, and different from any sword that killed people in this world. It was a sword that could punish the heavens, a sword that could destroy the world. Humans had life, and they would be destroyed. Stars had life, and they would be destroyed. Heaven and earth had life, and they would also be destroyed. It was no longer targeted at a living individual, but the entire great path of heaven and earth and the world of creation as a target to be destroyed. It was only natural that such a vicious sword would be rejected by this place. Chapter 802. Facing the rejection, Xianli appeared and stared expressionlessly at the foreign dimension on the other side of the door. Her eyes gradually glowed red. However, the rebound from the foreign dimension was even more intense. It was even expanding outwards to suppress Xianli. As their auras clashed, the red light in Xianli's eyes became more and more intense. However, Lin Feng waved his hand at her. Before the blade was completely sharpened, Xianli was clearly no match for him. The power of the foreign dimension suddenly erupted and directly pushed Xianli back along with the heaven-punishing sword box. Instead of falling back to Mount Penglai, they traversed the void and landed directly in the Black Heaven's Time grotto heaven above Mount Yujing. Violent clear light kept gushing out from the opening of the sword box, as if it wanted to tear the entire Black Heaven's Time grotto heaven apart. The frustrated heaven-punishing sword fell into a state of extreme anger. Seeing this, Lin Feng's pupils shrank slightly. With a thought, he stopped the heaven-punishing sword from rampaging and calmed it down. However, his eyes were fixed on the door in front of him. Just now, when the heaven-punishing sword was pushed back to the peak of Mount Yujing, it didn't pass through me. Instead, it directly traversed the void and arrived there. There was no sense of distance at all. It was as if this door was also very close to Mount Yujing. Layers of void and space folded chaotically. Even a cultivator like Lin Feng, who was proficient in spatial changes, would need time if the distance was too far. Moreover, Yingxi was also a foreign dimension. It was separated from the divine land by the power of the boundary. But this strange foreign dimension in front of him seemed to be everywhere. Its door could exist in Penglai Mountain, where Lin Feng was at, and it could also exist anywhere in the vast land of the divine continent. Just now, the foreign dimension rebounded strongly. Spirit Qi exploded. It was vast and boundless, yet extremely pure and condensed. Even Mount Yujing did not have such rich spirit Qi. The purity of the spirit Qi was the first time Lin Feng had seen it since coming to the great heaven primordial world. However, after pushing Xianli back, everything instantly calmed down. All the spirit Qi seemed to have dissipated. Usually, there's no trace of it, but it seems to be everywhere. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes and sized up the foreign dimension in front of him. It has such astonishing quality and quantity of spirit Qi. Combining these 2 points, this place, Lin Feng tapped the space between his eyebrows. The 7 seas of heaven origin were the 7 strangest foreign spaces in the heaven origin world. Each of them had their own unique features. Among them, the empty ocean, mysterious ocean, netherworld ocean, sanctuary ocean, and starry ocean were relatively stable. Among them, the mysterious ocean, sanctuary ocean, and starry ocean were all connected to the vast thousand world through fixed domain passageways. The empty sea was the void battlefield, and it was a little special. The space there was chaotic, and there were no fixed spatial passageways. However, if one ignored the dangers within, it was not difficult to enter or leave. The netherworld sea was a bit more mysterious. It was in a sealed state, but cracks would occasionally appear. However, the locations of these cracks were quite regular. For the divine land, cracks would usually appear in the southern wasteland. At the same time, due to the chaotic characteristics of the void battlefield's spatial boundaries, cracks in the netherworld sea often opened in the empty sea. The various calamities and tribulations that came out of the poison stream also became a part of the many dangers in the empty sea. However, the Dead Sea and the Spiritual Sea, the remaining 2 of the 7 seas of heaven's origin, were much more mysterious. The Dead Sea was the source of the Dharma-ending catastrophe. It seemed to be everywhere, but there was no trace of it. The Spiritual Sea, like the Dead Sea, was not a foreign space with a fixed location. It seemed to be closely attached to the vast thousand world. However, not many people could clearly tell where the spiritual sea was, and they did not know how to get there. Throughout history, there was very little information about the spiritual sea. At the same time, there were only a few words about it. Basically, it was an individual who entered it by mistake. Such cases were also pitifully rare. Those who were lucky enough to enter and return to the vast thousand world also did not know much about the spiritual sea. They only left behind some rough descriptions that did not have much reference value. It's as if I can feel the endless laws of the Great Way strengthening my body. Spiritual chi that is incomparably pure and abundant, almost endless. An ocean that is completely formed by spiritual chi. The information about the spiritual sea was fragmented like this. However, based on his own experience, Lin Feng could basically determine that the foreign space that he had opened with great difficulty was the spiritual sea of the seven seas of heaven's origin. So, this is the place that Taishu Temple has been thinking about, the spiritual Qi Sea. Lin Feng stood in front of the door and thought to himself, did Taishu Temple finally find the spiritual sea by following the clues, or did they actually come into contact with the spiritual sea before? The stone flute and the stone stairs are still in my hands, but they have already opened the spiritual sea. If it was their first time searching, the clues they had would not be so extravagant. They must have thought of a way to take the things back from me, to have the ability to open the spiritual sea. Based on this, it seems that they have come into contact with it before. Slowly, Lin Feng nodded. The Taishu Temple could have such great power and become an evergreen tree in the human cultivation world. It could not be underestimated indeed. On Jade Capital Mountain, Xianli smashed the sword case on the ground. She sat cross-legged on top of the case. There was a rare look of reluctance on her face. She was full of hostility toward the foreign space. Lin Feng found it interesting. She had only been in such a state during the Battle of West Hill City, when Xin Longsheng retreated with the immortal heavenly sword. It's my fault. I forgot that you don't get along with the spiritual sea. Lin Feng shook his head with a smile. After comforting Xianli again, he turned to look at the foreign space in front of him and fell into deep thought again. The unknown was always the greatest danger and difficulty. If one knew the details, one could analyze, prepare, and plan no matter how difficult it was. However, when faced with a completely unknown existence, one could only adapt according to the situation. No one knew what would happen. After thinking for a while, Lin Feng sent a voice transmission to Xiao Yin, Zhu Yi, and the other disciples. I have made some progress in my cultivation recently. I will be in seclusion in the void. Lin Feng paused for a while and added, the duration of this seclusion may be long or short. During this period, I may respond to your voice transmission, or I may not respond at all. Everyone, don't panic. He was not worried that anything would happen to him. However, if the power of the boundary of the spiritual sea was special and blocked voice transmission, Xiao Yin and the others would inevitably panic when they realized that they had lost contact with him. Although Xiao Yin and the others were a little surprised, they all expressed their understanding. Whether it was human or demon cultivators, seclusion like this was not very common, but it was not rare either. Some were long, while others were short. The shortest was only a few days, while the longest was 10 years, 100 years, or even 1,000 years. One of the most bizarre cultivators in the history of the Divine Land was in seclusion in the void for tens of thousands of years. During this period, there was no news at all. When people from the outside world tried to contact him, they all sank into the sea without any response. In the end, when he came out of seclusion and returned from the void, the world had already changed. Of course, because of this uncertainty, the cultivators were very cautious about this, but it was not rare. When I am in seclusion, everything in the sect will be handled by Xiao Yin, and the others will assist. If Tianhao returns from the void battlefield, give him the demon King Qiongqi that I captured from the East Sea as soon as possible. Xiao Yin quickly answered, Disciple obeys, master. Don't worry. Zhu Yi and the others also said yes. Lin Feng continued. Little Linny, You travel with Hong Yin, little Qingzi, and the others. You need to take care of everyone. Wang Lin replied calmly, Master, don't worry. Yuan Fong, Xiao Wu, don't delay your cultivation. After I come out of seclusion, I will test you. Lin Feng said with a smile. Li Yuan Fong and Luo Qingwu also quickly agreed. After making the arrangements for his disciples, Lin Feng took a deep breath and stepped into the world of the spiritual sea. Strolling in a world of nothingness, Lin Feng was also a bit aimless for a time. While walking, he carefully sensed the great paths that existed in the world of the spirit sea, as well as the invisible, yet vast, and endless spiritual energy. Training here can yield twice the results with half the effort. Lin Feng walked and walked, suddenly stopping his footsteps. This was because he suddenly felt that the heavenly scarlet golden orb at the entrance of the spiritual sea had suddenly changed. In almost an instant, the invisible staircase that was originally hanging in the void suddenly shook. In the next moment, the staircase regained its shape. Then, the stone flute, the stone staircase, and a heavenly scarlet golden orb separated and turned into 3 streams of light that rushed into the spiritual sea together. The 3 treasures flew to Lin Feng's side, but the grand Luo inside, the heavenly scarlet golden orb, was full of surprise. Lin Feng was also surprised. After careful inspection, he found that the heavenly scarlet golden orb, the stone flute, and the stone staircase were all normal. But then, Lin Feng realized that something was wrong. The space of the spiritual sea in front of him also shook. Transparent bands of light crisscrossed in the sky, and all the great Tao of heaven and earth seemed to appear at the same time. What the hell are those people from the Taishu temple doing? Lin Feng's brows furrowed. Have they already grasped the spiritual sea to such a degree that they can control it freely? Even if they don't want me to come in, they don't have to do this, right? In reality, Lord Tai and the others weren't even sure if Lin Feng had entered the spiritual sea, and they weren't in a good mood either. They looked at each other. It's Yudu of the Tianhai seas doing to make the spiritual sea so chaotic. It had always been easier to destroy than to build. It wasn't easy for the people of Taishu Temple to set things right. This is... Kai Fengzhou was slightly stunned. He looked at a middle-aged man that looked similar to him suddenly appearing in front of him. It was a clone that he had refined. It was supposed to be cultivating in seclusion on White Cloud Mountain, and he had never planned to bring it into the spiritual sea. But now it had appeared in front of him automatically. His original body and clone had many bodies at the same time, and their minds were connected. He also felt that it was strange. For no reason or reason, he had suddenly been moved from the cave abode on White Cloud Mountain to this spiritual sea. At this moment, Lin Feng was also looking at the 4 figures in front of him, and he was slightly stunned. The 2 big ones were giants that were over 600 yards tall. They were Lin Feng's Boundless Ocean Emperor and Emperor of Heaven-bearing Earth Emperor. They were the protective measures he had entrusted to Li Yuan Fong and Luo Qingwu, the 2 disciples with lower cultivation, just in case. The 2 small ones were his war god clone and Brontosaurus clone. Lin Feng frowned and looked around at the spiritual sea world he was in. This time, it's really a little big. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.